Okay. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. This is Shyam Kagod here. Welcome to Byju's Exam Prep IAS. Now, before I start the discussion, if there is any issue with the sound, can you give me a thumbs up? Or if there is no issue with the sound. Okay, thanks a lot. Now, yesterday we started with the concept of international trade. Idea of international trade. In international trade, certain concepts were left out. We have covered those concepts. For example, we started with the idea of convertibility. That it was covered last week itself, but anyways, convertibility, right, that is whether the capital account is convertible, current account is convertible. Just for sake of UPSC, please remember this, civil service examination, capital account is partially convertible and current account is fully convertible, fully and partially convertible. Okay, and there is a committee also, SS Tarapore committee. Remember the name of the committee, can be asked in the prelims. SS Tarapore committee, which recommended that we should have full capital account convertibility. Now, apart from convertibility, we have also discussed foreign trade policy. In association with the foreign trade policy, we started the discussion of the economic integration. We started from there, economic integration. Now, what is this idea of an economic integration? Simple. It's basically a policy, a discriminatory policy. I hope you understand my statement. It's a discriminatory policy which is followed by a number of countries which are there in the grouping. And in case of this discriminatory policy, the member countries for each other, right, of course, for each other can reduce and eliminate the tariffs, right? Can reduce and eliminate the trade barriers. For example, I told you India, Australia free trade agreement, India, UAE free trade agreement, India, Korea free trade agreement, right? Or RCEP, regional comprehensive economic partnership, etc. All these are nothing but the concept of trade agreements itself. Now, in the context of FTAs, right, we also have discussed why FTAs have not worked for India. That is, what have been the concerns regarding the free trade agreements. If you remember it, I've told you, Government of India has signed multiple FTAs, but with the signing of the FTAs, no doubt, the overall trade has increased. But along with the rise in the overall trade, India's trade deficit with these countries also has increased, which means maximum benefit of these free trade agreements has been enjoyed by the other countries in the group, not India. And that is a precise reason you will see that trade deficit has widened. Right, for example, India ASEAN agreement, India ASEAN, Association of Southeast Asian Nations. If you remember the data yesterday, I've told you between 2010 to 2017, the trade deficit, which was around $5 billion, has doubled to $10 billion. And during the same time period, the overall trade has increased from $50 billion to $70 billion. Right, so that has been one issue. And out of 21 sectors which have been covered under this India ASEAN FTA, 13 of the sectors, the deficit is actually widened. And apart from this, below those 2 points, I've also written other points. The value of imports have increased, right? The imports have become cheaper, as a result of which domestic manufacturing or domestic companies are getting affected, etc., etc. Now, that is the precise reason I told you. Now, Government of India is ensuring that whenever FTAs are signed, we are going to get the benefit of these FTAs. Better rules are being implemented. Right? Best example is India Australia FTA, India UAE FTA. Now, if you ask me, sir, how is Government of India ensuring that new agreements will function better than the earlier agreements? Right? I hope you understand this. How new agreements will function better than the earlier agreements. Right? Do not search for the books in the answer or for the answer in the books. It will not give you. But argument is you will have to basically connect the dots, multiple dots. You will realize, okay, Government of India is trying to ensure that new FTAs will provide more benefits to India. How? Just think of this and answer. Is it okay if I say that now new FTAs that the Government of India is signing, the exports under the new FTAs can be promoted with implementation of the schemes such as Make in India scheme, production linked incentive scheme, Atmanirbhar Bharat, etc. Is it okay? Is it okay? Just think of it and answer to me. Start participating, right? So the new FTAs that Government of India is signing, how can we ensure that these will be better compared to earlier ones? Because earlier also we implemented assuming that we will get major benefit. But now how can we ensure that we'll get more benefit? One, Government of India is promoting manufacturing in India. It is promoting manufacturing in India. How? Make in India. That is one scheme. Or for that matter, production linked incentives in India. Right? So understand this. One, there is a promotion of manufacturing, which we expect. For example, PLI. I told you yesterday, one of the objectives under PLI is to promote more and more exports. So one is these kind of policies. Second, remember this also, government is implementing, or government has basically ensured that there is, I'll write it in the third slide so that you will understand it is connected to the international trade. Government of India now has introduced the concept of review mechanism. There is a concept of review mechanism, right? What do you mean by review mechanism? Simple. Government of India says whenever we sign these new free trade agreements, whenever we are signing these new free trade agreements, we will review the free trade agreements after certain period of time. And it will vary from one agreement to another agreement because, of course, it depends on negotiations. How negotiations are conducted, it all depends on that. So Government of India says we will also have a review mechanism as a provision within the free trade agreement. Now, is it okay if I say, if there is a compulsory review mechanism after 5 years, after 10 years like this, imagine after 10 years, one free trade agreement is taken up, it is reviewed. Now, Government of India will realize that, okay, the other country is getting the benefit, I am not getting the benefit. Can we negotiate again with the country? Can we ask for certain changes in the free trade agreement? That is one more very important point. And the third one, please remember this is slightly technical. Government is ensuring that there are certain provisions such as rules of origin. Rules of origin, RO, right? Very famously referred to as RO. Rules of origin provisions within the free trade agreement. What do you mean by rules of origin? Follow this carefully. Imagine this is country A. Country A has conducted trade with B. Right? There are two countries which are conducting trade. Exports are going and imports are also coming. Now there is also country C, right? Exports from C are going to A and vice versa. C is also importing. Now follow this carefully. Let's start with a very simple example. Imagine this bottle. It is manufactured in B, manufactured in C, exported to A. Right now under the MFN concept, the tariff which is applicable, let's say, is 20%. Is it okay? Under the MFN principle, the tariff which is applicable is 20%. Now that is point number one. Point number two, A will enter into a free trade agreement with B. Have a look at this. A will enter into a free trade agreement with B. Now what will happen as a result of this agreement? Now A country will say, rather than imposing 20% tariff, I will reduce it to 0%. I will simply reduce it to 0%. Possible? Of course, yes. That's the whole idea of signing the free trade agreement. Now have a look at this. This bottle exported from country B to country A attracts a tariff of 0%. Exported from country C to country A attracts 20%. Now don't you think when this bottle will be exported from C to A, tariff, because it is higher, right, the export potential will automatically come down. Is it okay? Because the tariff is higher, export potential will automatically come down. Now what the country C can do, that is exporters from C, what they can do is, they will export this bottle from country C to country B. From country B, they will export it to country A. Is the logic okay? Please do let me know. What country C will do is, that is a manufacturer in country C will do is, first they will export from country C to country B. And now they will export it from country B to country A. Now some of you are asking why? Why are they doing it? Simple. If they directly export from C to A, their bottles will attract 20% tariff. But if they route it through B, right, let's say B will impose 10% tariff on this. Let's say hypothetically, B will impose 10% tariff on this. Now tell me, compared to earlier situation that is paying 20%, don't you think that the tariff which is applicable on the bottle would be much lower now? Is it okay? Right? These methods can be used by them, and this will defeat the whole purpose of signing such agreements. A and B have signed the agreement, but somebody else not belonging to either of the countries are misusing the provisions of the agreement. And that is the precise reason there are provisions which are referred to as rules of origin. ROO, rules of origin. Now, any agreement where there is a rules of origin, for example, India, UAE. I hope you understand this. For example, India, UAE, there is a provision of rules of origin. What is this rules of origin? Simple. Imagine this bottle is exported from C to B, then B to A. Now, when this enters into country A, the importer, that is country A, will ask for certificate. They will ask for a certificate. What is the certificate? The exporter from country B has to certify saying that this product was manufactured in country B. Is it okay? The product was actually manufactured in country B. We did not simply import finished good and export it to you. We did not do that. We purchase certain raw material. We could have purchased from, right, D, E or C for that matter. We have purchased certain raw material, no doubt. But the manufacturing, right, to a certain extent has happened in country B. This is called as rules of origin. Any difficulty, please do let me know. What is the objective here? Objective is simple. Rather than routing the bottles from country B, now something has to be manufactured in country B. If they do not manufacture the bottle in country B, if they don't add value to the bottle in country B, then this benefit of 0% tax rate will not be provided to such bottle. Is it okay? If it is not manufactured in country B, if it is simply brought in from C, then exported to A, then the benefit of 0% tax rate will not be provided to this particular bottle. Right? That is basically the idea of rules of origin. Can the raw material be imported? Yes, they can import raw material. Right? Again, I'll use a technical language here. Right? They will use a term value addition. How much value addition has taken place in country B? How much value addition has taken place in country B? That will determine whether 0% is applicable when it will land into A, or right, they will not give 0%, they will rather give 20%. Right, I'm discussing this for a very simple reason. Why? Right, just like many people try to find out issues with this. Sir, what if this happens? What if that happens? Etc. etc. Very recently, the government tax authorities have found that there is right certain issues with even rules of origin. What is this rules of origin? What if a fake certificate is brought? Like you people try to find out. In fact, it was there in the newspaper. You can check it. What if a fake certificate is brought? Right? What if right the authority which is supposed to issue has taken money and issued a wrong certificate, etc. like this? That is a precise reason. Now, right now there is a thought. Again, this is yet to be implemented. Now there is a thought that rather than asking the importer to bring a certificate like this, why don't we create digital copies of it? That is directly the authority which is supposed to issue this certificate in country B, they will send a digital copy directly to the tax authorities in India. Is the logic okay? Right now they bring certificate, physical copies they get. Rather than this, now there is a thought that why don't we simply set up a new system wherein right these certificates will be sent in the form of right digital copies, so that I don't have to wait for the importer to provide the certificate to me. That is one. Second, there is a concern that he might give me a fake certificate. Now that is also addressed because I'm directly getting it from the agency from another country. And third, because it is coming from the agency, the time that is required for me to get the certificate will be very, very short, right? Rather than him coming or the importer bringing in the product, then giving me the certificate, which is a time consuming process. Even before the product will reach India, I would have already received the digital copy of the certificate. Any issue with this? Please do let me know, right? Any issue with this? So that is the basic idea of rules of origin. ROO, rules of origin. Okay. Only value addition attracts 0% and input material attract. My dear, you tell me, how will government of India impose 20% tax on raw material which is imported by country B? How? You tell me. Right? I hope you understand this. When the bottle will come to India, impose the tax on bottle, not on raw material. What is your calculation? You tell me. Right? So it's basically a bottle which is coming into India. Right? Assuming A is India. So government of India, do you think will impose a tax on raw material of the bottle or on the bottle? Right? It's basic idea. Okay? Done. So this is a concept of rules of origin. And regarding this rules of origin, there is also one more term. Please remember this. Karo-Tar rules. Karo-Tar rules. Right, very, very famous. Karo-Tar, right? And the concept of rules of origin in case of India is implemented under Karo-Tar itself. Right, so this is how government of India is ensuring that whatever agreements we are signing now, will be able to export more and get the larger benefit of it. Right? Is the logic okay here? Can you hit easily 250 words using these particular 3 arguments that I've given? That is one, rules of origin, review mechanism, and promotion of manufacturing in the domestic market with implementation of many of these schemes. Right? So please be very careful. UPSC tends to ask these kind of questions. They tend to ask these kind of questions because very often government says, earlier governments have done this, we want to change it, etc., etc. And that is done by every government. Don't get into the political argument there. Get into economic side of it. Now, if UPSC will ask you, tell me how these agreements which are signed by government now will not be a repetition of the past. I hope you understand. Right? How these agreements are not a repetition of the past. Please tell me. Then that is how you will have to express this. Is it okay? That is how you will have to basically design these particular answers. Done? But having said so, please understand the next point also. Is signing FTA sufficient? Because I'm discussing these kind of questions, let me just go beyond this. Is signing the FTAs sufficient for India? Just because you sign FTAs, does it mean that Indian exports will boom? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. Please don't be under that impression as well. Right? Because let's say a question like this is asked. With signing of new FTAs by the government, the exports of India will boom. Right? Elaborate. Or do you think that the exports from Indian economy will rise? Right? Elaborate. Discuss, give your viewpoint, etc., etc. These kind of questions can be asked. So answer is here. Yes, India has signed more than 10 of these agreements. So these are implemented right now. But that doesn't mean that signing of these agreements automatically India's trade will increase. Absolutely no. That is a wrong inference. Why? One, have a look at this argument here. Have a look at this argument. Whether our exports will rise up or not is dependent on many factors, such as what will happen to the global scenario. All of you agree with this? Anybody has a problem with this statement? Let me know. What happens in global scenario? Definitely yes, that will have an impact on whether our exports will go up or go down. Because I hope you understand this. Last year, that is for 22, the total amount of exports that have done from India, that is merchandise exports, were $422 billion. Were $422 billion, highest in Indian history. $422 billion. So understand this. That doesn't mean that every year it will keep on increasing, provided, have a look at this, provided there is no growth in the global market. It will not happen. Why you are talking about exports? What if European market falls into recession? You think of it. European market falls into recession. USA market falls into a slowdown and recession. Do you think our exports will increase further? Absolutely no. Right? So one, what will happen to global scenario definitely has a huge impact on our exports will rise up or not. Second, whenever you talk about trade agreements, it's not that all the trade that is conducted in the global market is through trade agreements. I hope you understand this. It's not that all the trade that is done in the global market, right? That is India exports, India imports, China exports, China imports, USA exports, USA imports, etc. It's not that all the trade that is done in the global market is done through trade agreements. Absolutely no. Right? Most of the trade, even today, most of the trade is done between countries which do not have trade agreements. Can I give an example? India, USA. Do you think India has a trade agreement with USA? India, Britain. India, European Union. Right? So argument is simple. India doesn't have the trade agreements with all the countries that we are trading with. So argument is signing of the free trade agreements doesn't mean that suddenly our exports will balloon. No, we expect our exports to increase, but apart from that, one, we need to ensure that we sign more and more trade agreements. Point one, understand this. We need to sign more and more free trade agreements. And second, much more important, we need to sign trade agreements with larger countries. I hope you understand my statement. Second one is much more important. It's not just that we need to sign trade agreements, it's that we need to sign trade agreements with larger trading partners. For example, USA. I hope you understand why USA is very, very important to us. It's very, very important. I'll tell you why. India, China conducts trade. India, USA also conducts trade. But India-USA trade is very important to us for a very simple reason. India has a trade surplus here. India has a trade surplus here. India-China trade is also important. But the problem is India has a trade deficit here. Is the logic okay with all of you? Right? India has a trade deficit here, but on the other hand, we have trade surplus. That's the reason we want to negotiate trade agreement with USA. Right? We are not thinking of trade negotiations with China. Why? We have a trade deficit. And imagine, right? Some of you will say, sir, we should do that also. Imagine this. Even without the trade agreement, so much imports are coming from China. Imagine you sign a free trade agreement, you will impose a 0% duties on it. Imagine what will happen to imports. Right? That was one of the reasons why we actually stayed away from RCEP. Right, there was a proposal RCEP, or there is a concept of RCEP, Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. One of the reasons we said we don't want to be part of RCEP is this only, India-China trade deficit. Right, $60 billion, $80 billion, $100 billion. Trade deficit is very, very high with China. So with so many tariff barriers, this is the trade deficit. Now, if you sign the agreement with China or if you become a part of RCEP, you will eliminate all these barriers. Imagine what will happen to trade deficit. Right? So that's the reason, understand this. What is the global scenario? That will determine. Second, right, trade agreements will account for only small part of the global trade, not the complete part of the global trade. And third, all the trade agreements that we have signed recently are not with major trading partners. What do you mean by major trading partners? With whom we have huge amount of trade. For example, USA. We are still negotiating with USA. UK, European Union. These are very, very important markets for us. That doesn't mean that these FTAs are useless. These are also very important for us. Right? So, this is how you generally address. Third, right, just signing the free trade agreement doesn't mean that our exports will increase. We need to improve competitiveness. We need to improve competitiveness of our exports. Having said so, write a point here, right? Basically saying that Government of India is implementing many reforms to promote competitiveness of exports in India. For example, right, is it okay if I write this? implementation of projects such as expressways. Implementation of projects such as expressways, RODTP, remission of duties and taxes on exported products, or production linked incentives, etc. Right, so this is how you write, let's say, a 200 worded answer for these kind of questions. Any problem with this? Can you easily hit 250 words with these kind of points or not? Right, and again I'll keep on telling you this. Right, this is my 4th weekend. I'll tell you the same thing. You will not get these points from books, and trust me, right, you cannot expect these kind of answers from the book. They will not give you that. That is where for economics or Indian economy, you'll have to cultivate this kind of a thinking. And if you can read current affairs, connect the dots like this, right, definitely yes, you'll be able to write these answers. It's not difficult. Only difficulty is that you are supposed to read all this. You are supposed to understand. You are supposed to connect the dots. Then you'll understand, okay, easily I could have written the answer. Done? Okay. Right, so let me start with, or before that, yesterday I just forgot to tell you one more concept related to FTAs itself. I'll write it here. Related to FTAs, I forgot to tell you one more concept. Right, that is, whenever you are discussing about FTAs, right, there's a term in the current affairs that is called as a early harvest trade deal. Early harvest trade deal. Early harvest trade deal. Now, what do you mean by early harvest trade deal? It is basically a precursor, right? That is, it's an agreement. It is basically an agreement which you sign before you sign FTA. Is it okay? It's basically one agreement that you sign before you sign FTA. Sir, what do you mean by that? Look at the term early harvest. Early harvest. Right, now, what is the meaning of early harvest trade deal? Let me give you a very simple example. Imagine there are two countries, A and B. They are holding trade negotiations, and in the trade negotiations, they are supposed to cover 100 goods and services. Either goods or services, or only goods, don't worry. Focus on the concept. 100 goods and services. Now, is it okay if I say that out of 100 goods and services, you will easily come to agreement on 30 goods and services? I hope you understand. Once the discussions or deliberations will start, very easily both the sides will come to an agreement, or very quickly both the sides will come to an agreement on 30 goods and services. We will reduce it to 0. Other party says, okay, we'll reduce it to 0. Now, remaining 70 goods and services, it takes time. Both the parties have certain concerns. Both the parties want to hold negotiations. They want to, right, consult their stakeholder. They want to consult that industry, this industry, etc., etc., etc. Now, my simple question is, imagine this, right? The agreement on 30 goods, that is, both the parties will agree on 30 goods in, let's say, 1 month. And for remaining 70 goods and services, let's say you will take 1 more year to negotiate and come to a conclusion. Or don't you think it makes more sense, economic sense, that because you have agreed on 30 goods very quickly, you should sign a trade deal only for 30 goods? Just think of it. Right? There are 100 goods. You want to cover all the 100 goods and services in the trade agreement, no doubt. But very quickly, within a month itself, you have come to an agreement on 30 goods and services. Now, should you wait for 1 year to negotiate remaining 70 and then sign a deal covering all the 100 goods and services? Or because you have already arrived at agreement on 30, you should sign a month or a deal after 1 month covering only 30 goods and services? What do you think makes more sense? I hope you understand. What do you think makes more sense? Right, signing all the 100 goods at once, but waiting for 1 year, or out of 100, 30 goods and services, you will sign now, and remaining 70, once the negotiations are done after 8 months, after 10 months, after 12 months, or after 15 months, you will sign a full deal after 15 months. Right? What do you think? Signing all the 100 at one time? Arre baba, huh? What about others? Only 3 people want to participate. Rest of them like, let's wait for everybody else, right? First one makes more sense. Please understand this. That is 30 goods you will sign first, remaining 70 you will negotiate, and then you will sign for remaining 70. Why? Why? I'll tell you. These 30 goods, right, basically are not very strategically important for both of them. Now, what is the point? What is the point in delaying agreement even on 30 goods? I hope you understand this. Otherwise, let me give you a corollary, right? Or basically a similar example with this. You will attempt PTS, or let's say you will go for UPSC civil service examination. Just think of it. Think of it, you will only understand. You will go to write civil service examination. You are sitting in the examination hall, and the GS paper is given to you. You'll start reading one question after the other. Will you go by question after question, solve everyone sequentially like this, or you will look at whichever question is very easier, you will round off those first? I hope you understand. Right? You will go through questions, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, here and there you will see, okay, this is easy, this is easy, this is easy, this is easy. Right? Or maybe after 20 pages, you will see one question which is very easy. So will you solve all of the questions sequentially? First, second, third, or those questions which are easiest, you will solve first. Then you will come to, okay, maybe out of 3 statements, you know 2 statements. Can you use elimination? Then you will come to, let's say, out of 3 statements, you know only 1. Right? Can you use elimination? Can you use a trick somewhere? And finally, right, rolling the dice. Tukka laga denge, right? I'll simply roll the dice. If I get it, I'll get it. Otherwise, I'll not get it. Right? So argument is, I'm pretty sure all of you know this. You have practiced it. You will start with the most easiest ones. Most easiest ones first you will solve. Apply the same logic here, my dear. Apply the same logic. There are 2 countries. They want to hold negotiations with 100 goods and services. There are certain goods and services which are contentious. Both the countries want to be very careful with them. That will take time. But because if that takes time, should you delay, right, signing a deal with other goods and services? What is the use? Why not sign one agreement covering only those goods, continue to trade more and more in them, and continue to negotiate on remaining 70? Right? That first agreement which is signed before FTA is called as early harvest trade deal. Is it okay? Any problem with this? The agreement that is generally arrived at, right, on those goods and services which are easier to agree upon, on which no much discussion is required. These are not very contentious goods and services. Those goods are covered, right? We will arrive at a deal which is called as early harvest trade deal. Sir, any agreement where we have signed early harvest trade deal? India, Australia. Most recent one, India, Australia. Early harvest trade deal is signed. Now we are expecting a full-fledged trade deal, right, which has started, or which we have recently started implementing, I believe, from the end of November. Any doubts with respect to this? Any doubts? Please do let me know. Right? And one more concept related to this. Very often you will come across a terms called as comprehensive partnership trade deal. Right? A comprehensive partnership trade deal. Right? Economic comprehensive trade agreement, etc., etc. Whatever names they use, these are simply FTAs. I hope you understand. Right? For example, in case of India, UAE, they'll call this as comprehensive trade agreement. Right? In case of India, Australia, economic cooperation trade agreement. Whatever names they might use, they are in essence free trade agreements only. I hope you understand. They are in essence a free trade agreement. Now, some of you will ask me, in that case, why the names are different? Why don't they simply call it as a free trade agreement? Reason is, whenever you talk about free trade agreement, these generally cover goods and services. You're talking about goods and services. But when you come across the term comprehensive free trade agreement or comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, CECA, ECTA, right, etc., look at the term here, comprehensive means what? These agreements not only cover goods and services, they will cover other aspects as well. Rather than covering only goods and services, they will cover other aspects as well. For example, what? If you talk about India-UAE free trade agreement, it doesn't simply cover goods and services. No, it doesn't simply cover goods and services. Free trade agreement by default will cover goods and services, but they cover investments under this. They have covered investments under this. They have covered the digital, right, technology under this. So rather than covering only goods and services and signing a deal on it, if you go beyond that, cover more than goods and services, generally these kinds of terms are used. Comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, economic cooperation trade agreement, etc., 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 like this. Right? Any difficulty in any of the points that I've discussed, please be very, very careful. Ask me if you have a doubt. Right? These are important. Right? These are not just right, factually related information. These are important. Right? Because it is there in the current affairs. Very often these are discussed in the current affairs. For example, Mr. Goyal, right, the trade minister, right, very recently announced that we will have a we might have early harvest trade deal with some countries before signing a full-fledged trade deal. Right? So argument is simple. Right? These are important. These are there in the newspapers, can be asked by UPSC. CEPA, Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. Again, same logic. Like I've said, whatever terms they might use, don't be fooled by the term. Don't be confused by the term. They are talking about FTA, but rather than covering only goods and services, they are covering much more than goods and services. That is the only reason why they are using it. Sir, why difference? Arey Baba, I told you right. If it is only goods and services, it's an FTA, free trade agreement. But are you talking about only trade here? Apply logic. Apply logic, you will only understand. Are they talking only trade? Are they covering only trade? Answer is no. If they were covering only trade, that would be an agreement only on goods and services. But they are not covering only trade, they are covering much more than trade. They could be covering digital technologies. They could be covering patents, intellectual property rights. They could be covering investment protection, etc., etc., etc. That is the precise reason they will use a comprehensive terminologies like this. Okay, done. Any doubts here? Can I go forward? Any issues with, right, anything that we have covered? Preferential trade agreement. No, PTA basically covers small part of the trade. Right? Again, understand the logic here. Do you think PTA is comprehensive? Apply logic. How many of you think PTA is comprehensive? If PTA is comprehensive, it is not PTA, it is FTA. I hope you understand. In PTA, the whole idea is we are going to cover only small part of the trade. So you want to have a PTA that is only small part of the trade, but you want to cover comprehensive. How is that possible? Okay, done. PTA and early harvest trade deal same? No. Generally, early harvest trade deal is signed before FTA. Before FTA. I hope you understand. You want to sign FTA, but that will take time to arrive at agreement for all of them. So before you sign, before you negotiate for all of them, right, you will cover only small part of it. You will sign early harvest. Then you will sign FTA. Okay, let's start. Agriculture sector. Next topic that I'll be covering is agriculture sector. Important for both prelims as well as mains. Important for both prelims as well as mains. Right, so agriculture as well as food processing. This is what we'll be covering today. Minimum support price, MSP policy. Yesterday we started with that. Let's continue with that. There are a lot of things that you need to understand in the context of MSP. We'll discuss it today. Then we'll have a discussion regarding food subsidy and food security. Then we'll discuss credit in the agriculture sector. Then storage and warehousing concept. Then we'll have a discussion on marketing, that is APMC and ENAM. Very recently, I don't know how many of you have read it. I believe day for yesterday. There was one article in Business Line on ENAM. Right? You should have read it, but I'll give you the data. Please don't worry. Then what kind of technology is used in agriculture sector, and then food processing sector. After this is done, as usual, we'll take up questions both from prelims as well as mains from this chapter. Let me start. MSP, minimum support price. Right? What is MSP? The price that is basically paid by the government. Okay, the price that is paid by the government whenever the government will procure or purchase food grain from farmers. Simple. Do not complicate the definition. MSP is the price that is paid by the government whenever they will purchase the food grain from the farmers. That is minimum support price. Now, this concept of MSP was introduced by the government back in 1966. Right? And again, understand the importance of the policy here. In 1960s, Indian economy, specifically agriculture sector, is known for green revolution. I hope you have heard of it. Right? Earlier classes also have discussed some aspects related to green revolution. 1960s is associated with the concept of green revolution, where government of India promoted usage of high yield variety seeds. That is the seeds which have better productivity, more productivity providing seeds. Now the concern during that period of time was, if I use high yield variety seeds and I will cultivate the seeds, right? I will cultivate the crop, and these are high yield seeds. So obviously the total production will increase. The total production will increase. And when the total production increases, the supply to the market will automatically increase. Supply to the market will automatically increase. And when the supply to the market increases, what will happen to market prices? Yesterday also we have discussed this. What will happen to the market prices of these crops? The market prices will start coming down. So here is the problem. A farmer looks at this. Farmer says, I've cultivated the crop because government told these are better, these will give you better revenues. You will get more yield, you will get more production. I use the seed, production has increased, supply to the market increases, and the market prices have crashed. So rather than earning more income, my income has actually fallen. And don't you think the farmers will not be using the seeds now? Now, if they stop using the seeds, there was one more concern. India was an importer of food grain. India used to import lot of food grains at this point of time. Very famously, there is a law which was passed by USA, which is referred to as PL 480. Remember this, very, very famous. There was a law which was passed by the Congress of USA, PL 480. PL stands for Public Law 480. Under PL 480, the government of USA allowed export of food grain to India. So now the concern was, if I ask the farmers to use these seeds, the supply increases, market prices will fall, their incomes will come down. But on the other hand, if they stop using these seeds, the production will be lower, supply will become lower. Already I do not have sufficient food grain, I am importing food grain. So that was the dilemma. How do we address it? That is the reason post 66 and 67, government introduced the concept of minimum support price, MSP, wherein government said, irrespective of market prices, remember my statement, irrespective, that is whatever is the market price doesn't matter. Before you actually sow the seeds, I will tell you at what price I will purchase the food grain from you. Is it okay? I'll repeat the statement. Before you sow the seed, I will tell you what is the price at which I will purchase the food grain. right? That is how the government of India decided to inform the farmers, and right, whatever MSP is announced, at that price government will be purchasing food grade. This is a concept of MSP. Now have a look at the next point here. How is the MSP announced in India? Right, when it is announced before the sowing season and before Kharif sowing, right? Kharif, I hope you have heard of this, Kharif and Rabi. These are the two very important crop growing seasons in India. There is third also, Zaid, but the most important ones are Kharif and Rabi. So before the sowing season of Kharif and Rabi starts, the government will basically announce what is the MSP. There are more than 20 crops today. There are more than 20 crops. Some books will say 23, some books will say 24. I will go with the information given by CACP, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Prices. CACP says 23 crops. Is it okay? And can Government of India change it? Of course, yes. It's an executive policy. It's not a constitutional amendment. It is an executive policy. From 23, they can increase it to 25. From 25, they can cut it short to 20 also. It is entirely the policy of the government. So CACP website says there are 23 crops on which government will announce MSP. And when I say government here, the authority that announces MSP will be Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. CCEA, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. The process is very simple. Here is the CACP, Commission for Agriculture Cost and Price. The CACP based on various parameters. What do you mean by various parameters? How much will be the supply of this crop in India? What will be the cost of production of this crop in India? How much will be the demand for these crops in India? In the international market, how much will be supply? How much will be the demand? Etc. 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 So CACP takes into consideration many factors and recommends what should be the MSP. Recommends, remember that. It recommends what should be the MSP for these crops. And it is the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, CCEA, which will announce or which will decide MSP. Which will announce or which will decide MSP on these crops. Any difficulty so far? Please do let me know. Any difficulty, please do let me know. Now, next point. Central government will announce MSP. In addition to this MSP, state governments are also allowed to give bonus. If you say repeat, tell me which part to repeat. Should I repeat starting from 10 o'clock or starting from the first week? So please be specific so that I can understand and repeat from where, which point. Who decides how much crop in quantity to procure? Government. I'll come to that, don't worry. Right? So next point here. The central government will announce MSP, but in addition to central government, the state, right, the state government will announce bonus. Right? The central government will announce MSP. The state will announce bonus. Right? It will announce bonus. What do you mean by this? Let's say hypothetically, here is a state and I am a farmer in the state. Now I've cultivated a crop. Central government will announce MSP of, let's say, 1,000 rupees. And the state government has announced bonus of 200 rupees. So if I sell this crop to the government, if I sell the crop to the government, center will pay me 1,000 and the state government will pay me 200. So the total amount of money that I will be paid by selling the crop will be 1,200 rupees. CACP versus CCA. My dear, CACP is an authority which functions under Ministry of Agriculture. It is an attached office under the Ministry of Agriculture. And Cabinet Committee, it's a political concept. It's basically the group of most important ministers within the government. When you discuss polity, you'll come across cabinet ministers. And even if you have not read polity, don't worry. Have you heard of cabinet minister? Any example of a cabinet minister that you can think of? Right? Finance minister. So whenever you want to take most important policy decisions, you will have a cabinet committee, that is the group of most important ministers. Okay, now this is the basic idea of MSP, the bonus announced by the state government, and the process which is used to decide and announce MSP. Next point, why does government announce MSP in the first place? Right? Why? Earlier there was a concern regarding the drop in the prices, agreed. But what is the use of the MSP today? Understand these points carefully. One, government tries to ensure that farmers will be able to get certain amount of money when government will purchase the food grain from the market, from them, not the market, from them. And why this is important? Imagine government of India has announced 1,000 rupees MSP for a crop. Do you know what will be the market price? Any guarantee what will be the market price? Just think of it. If government of India has announced an MSP of 1,000 rupee, as a farmer, do you know what will be the market price of the crop? It could be 1,000 rupees, could be. There is no guarantee here. It could be higher than 1,000 rupees. It could be lower than 1,000 rupees as well. Why? Please understand this. Market functions on supply and demand. Market functions on supply and demand. Very simple. It functions on supply and demand, not the government number. Generally, there is a concern that higher MSP means prices will increase, but the market will basically behave based on supply and demand. For example, if you look at the prices of wheat in the last 1 year, the wheat prices have increased. Is it okay? Very recent in the newspaper, there's a term, very famous now. Cereal inflation. How many of you have read about it? Cereal inflation. Very famous now. Not just food inflation. Cereal inflation. Because within the food commodities, there are cereals, rice, that is rice and wheat. And if you look at the prices of these rice and wheat in the last 1 year, the prices have increased. And that is a cause of concern. So argument is, in the market, it all depends on supply and demand. If in the coming months, right, the production is higher, right, as in case of, let's say, wheat, we are expecting a bumper crop of wheat in the current cycle. If the production of wheat is actually higher, supply is expected to go up in the market. And when the supply suddenly rises up in the market, don't you think the prices will fall down? Prices will moderate. So the argument of the government is, market is uncertain. Market is uncertainty. You don't know how much you are going to earn when you sell in the market. But I will give you guaranteed 1,000 rupees. I hope you understand the importance of MSP. When you sell this crop in the market, you don't know how much you are going to get. Today you are cultivating, have a look at the beauty of the system in India. Today you are cultivating, the prices could be 1,000 rupees. By the time you harvest and sell it, there is no guarantee that the price will be 1,000, it could be lower than 1,000. Right? In fact, it is observed in case of vegetables. Remember this. In fact, this is observed in the context of vegetables. There is a term called as cobweb phenomenon. Cobweb phenomenon, very famous. Cobweb phenomenon, right? What is this idea of a cobweb phenomenon? You are trying to adjust with the market, but you will always be falling behind the market. I hope you understand. You are trying to cope up, you are trying to adjust your production with the market, but you will never be able to do that. You will always fall behind the market. You will not be able to come to terms with market. Sir, what is the meaning of it? Let me explain it. Understand all of this, all of them are related to agriculture sector. Generally, in case of India, cobweb phenomenon is associated with pulses and vegetables, but more importantly regarding pulses. Have a look at this. Government announces MSP for many crops. I'll show you the list. Have a look at this. Government announces MSP for many crops. I've given the list here. It will announce for cereals. It will announce for pulses, oilseeds, commercial crops, etc. But please understand the next point as well. It doesn't procure all of them. It doesn't purchase all of them. It doesn't need, simple, it doesn't need all the crops. For example, you tell me, what will government do with copra? Right, think of it. What do you think government will do with copra? What the government will do with sugar cane? In fact, for sugar cane, there's another term. I'll come to that. Just give me some time. What do you think government will do with, let's say, cotton? What is the use? Right? There's absolutely no use, right? Purchasing all of it by the government. So what government says is, I will announce MSP for 23 crops, but I will not purchase all of them. I will purchase cereals. I will purchase pulses. Right? Even oil seeds promotion is happening now. Okay. Majority of them are cereals. Most of the purchasing that is done by the government after announcing MSP is cereals itself. And when I say government purchases it, do not imagine literally the government will go to the market and purchase. No, on behalf of the government, the agencies of the government, such as Food Corporation of India, will purchase the crops. Is it okay? Right? On behalf of the government, it is the agencies of the government, majorly the Food Corporation of India, which will purchase the food grain from the market. Now, why does the government purchase it? I'll go back to previous slide. Don't worry. I'll go there. Why does the government purchase the crops and why only focused on cereals? Simple. Government needs to run public distribution system. Government needs to run public distribution system. Government needs to run midday meals scheme. Government needs to run many other schemes, integrated child development scheme, right, etc., etc. And don't say, sir, midday meals is not there. PM Poshan is there. Agreed. Right now, the name of the scheme has been changed. Rather than midday meals, now it is called as PM Poshan scheme. But argument is simple. You talk about these kind of schemes. What is required for this? In these schemes, what does the government provide? Cereals. That is the precise reason why government's procurement is majorly centered. Right? Most of the procurement is happening in cereals. That is specifically two of them, paddy and wheat. Right? Specifically two of them, paddy and wheat. Apart from this, they will also procure some of the coarse grains, millets. Some of the millets is also procured because under NFSA, they will distribute, right, these coarse grains as well. Any doubts here? Please do let me know so far. Any doubts? Now coming back to this idea of a cobweb phenomenon. Now have a look at this. Generally what is observed is the prices of pulses are not stable in India. I'll repeat the statement. The prices of pulses are not stable. Not stable means what? For a very short duration, prices will be very high. After that short duration, prices will fall. Again, it will go up, fall, right? That is basically if you plot it, right, along the y-axis, if you write price, and along the x-axis, if you write, let's say, the time period, the prices will keep on waxing and waning like this. It will keep on waxing and waning, right? That is, let's say this is 40 rupees today. It will never remain 40 rupees per kg. It will hit 100 rupees, then it will fall to 30 rupees, then it will 100, then it will hit to 120 rupees, etc. like this. There's a lot of waxing and waning. Volatility is very, very high. Now imagine you're a farmer, right? When the price of the pulse is this, let's say 100 rupees. Imagine a farmer is there. He will look at the market. Price of the pulse is 100 rupees per kg. Now, what do you think will happen to cultivation? Right? Don't you think looking at the price of the pulse here, more and more farmers will cultivate pulses? Is the logic okay? More and more farmers will cultivate pulses. And when more and more farmers will cultivate pulses, right, what will happen to supply? Supply of the pulses in the market will go up. And when the supply goes up, what will happen to market price? Market price will start going down. Now imagine, right, you are a farmer who started cultivating when the price was 100. By the time you sold in the market, the price had fallen to 30 rupees per kg. Right? The price has fallen to 30 rupees per kg. Now, as a farmer, what will you do? In the next cycle, you'll simply say, no, I will not cultivate pulse. right? Because prices are very low. Government mainly procures the paddy and wheat. I'll start cultivating paddy and wheat. So now you have shifted to cultivation of paddy and wheat. And just like you, there are many other farmers who will jump to paddy and wheat. As a result of this, what will happen to supply of pulses in the next cycle? In the next cycle, supply of pulses will automatically come down and the market prices will go up again. Right? So you wanted to adjust to the market. I hope you understand. You wanted to adjust to the market. You wanted to be a step ahead of the market. That is, you wanted to sell when the prices are high and earn more money. But you are not going to defeat the market. You will basically fall behind the market always. This is called as a cobweb phenomenon. This is referred to as a cobweb phenomenon. Always the market is front, you are falling behind of the market. Done? Right? So this is the basic idea. Right? Please do let me know if there is any issue. What about the oil seeds and commercial crops on which government announces MSP? Government generally doesn't procure more of them, only part of it. In order to stabilize the prices, in order to maintain a certain buffer stock, government might purchase. I'll come to the buffer in some time. But please understand it, most of the procurement, whatever is procured, around 80% of it is in the form of rice and wheat. And the reason should be very simple to you. Very, very simple. Talk about PM Poshan scheme. Talk about a public distribution scheme. Or for that matter, any of these schemes. What do you think government will distribute under it? Right? What do you think government will distribute? Right? Have you seen Government of India distributing, let's say, copra? Anywhere Government of India is distributing jute? Right? Absolutely no. Government mainly distributes rice, wheat and coarse grains. And that is a precise reason their procurement is also centered around these crops. Okay. So concept of MSP, concept of bonus, how the MSP is prepared. Again, I'll come to the cost methodology also. Just give me some time. How it is recommended, how it is decided, right? Why does the government announce the MSP? To provide certain returns to farmers, to stabilize the market prices, to procure and keep the food grains for distribution purposes, right? That is food security purposes. These are some of the reasons why Government of India generally announces MSP. Any issues so far? Please do let me know. Any issues so far? And this is the coverage of the crops under MSP. Please have a look at it. Some of you are asking, should I remember the crops? My recommendation is, please do that. Do that. I'll tell you a reason. Generally, I've never told the students to by heart this list. I've never told it. But suddenly, I believe 2 years ago, UPSC asked a question on this. Right? They asked a question on this, right? Wherein they gave a list of the crops and asked which of the crops are covered under MSP. So there is no predictability even with UPSC. They might ask you the question. So remember it. Anyways, the MSP is always there in the newspaper. Okay. Done. Shall I go to the next one? Again, when you say repeat, please do let me know what point to repeat. Right? It's basically a broad-based term. Repeat is a broad-based term. I could repeat anything. Right? Okay. Now, crop which government not procure, then what is the reason? My dear, we started with wheat and rice. Today, we don't procure wheat and rice because, right, I hope you have understood this. Green Revolution, we did not promote all the crops under Green Revolution. Right? I hope in high school you remember, right? You have learned about Green Revolution. Do you think we promoted sugarcane under Green Revolution? Do you think we promoted, let's say, copra cultivation, jute cultivation under Green Revolution? No, understand the historical context of it. Right? In 1960s, we promoted wheat. Then we have started promoting rice. That is the reason initially the coverage was very narrow. But over a period of time, the coverage has been widened to cover more and more, or more than 20 crops. Okay. Next, MSP, right, on what it is decided, multiple factors are there. But please understand, recommendation is given by CSEP considering multiple factors. But Government of India, if you have seen the newspaper, they will say MSP is equal to 150% of cost of production. Remember this. Government of India announces that MSP is equal to 150% of cost of production. Right now, question arises: what is this cost of production? What is this idea of a cost of production? Now, before I go forward, please remember this also. CACP gives a recommendation on MSP considering multiple types of parameters. One of them is cost of production. In fact, a CACP also uses multiple methodologies to calculate cost of production. For example, there is A1, there is A2, there is A2 plus FL, there is a C1, there is C2, right? There is a C2 star, etc., etc., etc. There are around 9 types of methodologies to calculate cost of production. Now the question is, which cost of production is actually used by the government to announce MSP? I hope my point is clear. I'll repeat it again. Follow it carefully. CACP recommends to Government of India. Government of India says, I will announce MSP equivalent to 150% of cost of production. But what is this cost of production? It is one of the factors that is considered by CACP to recommend MSP to the government. Now, even this cost of production can be calculated using multiple methodologies. Those methodologies are called as A1, A2, A2 plus FL, C1, C2, C2 star, etc., etc., like this. But Government of India considers one of these methodologies of cost of production, that is A2 plus FL, to announce MSP. Is the logic okay? Yeah? Government of India uses one of them, that is A2 plus FL, to announce the MSP. Right? 150% of A2 plus FL. Meaning what? If A2 plus FL is, let's say, 1000 rupees, then 150% of 1000 rupees, that is MSP announced by the government, will be 1500 rupees. Now, what is this A2? What is A2 plus FL? What is this C2? Because only 3 are discussed. You can search in Google, you can do whatever you want to do. Generally, in the newspaper also, only 3 are covered. Let's focus only on the 3 of them. First one is called as A2 methodology, right? A2 methodology. Now, under the A2 methodology, whatever expenses are incurred by the farmer in the form of inputs, I'll repeat it again. Under the A2 methodology, whatever, right, expenses are incurred, right, whatever expenses are incurred by the farmer when they purchase inputs, those expenses will be counted. Is it okay? Whatever expenses are incurred. For example, a farmer will purchase seeds, fertilizer, irrigation, etc. All these will be counted to arrive at A2 methodology. Right? Only the inputs, labor cost, irrigation cost, that is water supply, electricity, etc. Plus the insecticides that he has used, pesticides that he has used, cost of seeds, fertilizers, the expenses in all these forms will be counted, and you will get an expense which is called as A2 methodology. That is one methodology to calculate cost of production. Second methodology to calculate cost of production, A2 plus FL. A2 plus FL. What is this A2? Whatever is the expenditure incurred on input cost. Whatever is the expenses. What is this FL? FL stands for family labor. FL stands for family labor. For example, imagine I have a piece of land. I have hired 2 people to work on the land, and I am also working on this same agriculture land. At the end of the day, I will pay wages to the 2 people. I will not pay wages to myself. Is it okay? Or have you anywhere seen this practice? Let me know. At the end of the day, if I've hired 2 people, I'll pay the wages to the 2 people, but I do not pay any wages to myself. Although I also have worked on the field, I will not pay wages to myself. What this method says is, you will have to compute that. You will have to count that as well. So that is a family labor. Let's say, I'll just take a simple number so that you understand. In the earlier case, let's say the cost was 1000 rupees. Assuming each labor, I paid 100 rupees. So 2 labor units, 200, plus fertilizer, plus water plus electricity, etc., came to 1000. But now if I say A2 plus FL along with the 2 labor units, I have also worked on the land. I should also be paid 100 rupee wages. So now A2 plus FL will be 1100 rupees. Any difficulty here? A2 plus FL will be 1100 rupees. Now can I say that A2 plus FL will be greater than A2? Please do let me know. Participate. Now can I say that A2 plus FL will be greater than A2? Now there is one more, C2 methodology. Most comprehensive methodology, wherein the CACP says whatever input cost you have paid, count it. You have paid on inputs, right? Count it, right? Add it in the calculation. You have paid, right? You have used family labor units, add that also. You have a piece of land. Now have a look at this. That piece of land, if you had given it on rental basis to someone else, I hope you understand. Rather than me cultivating on the piece of land, if I had given the land to someone else, would I be earning rent on it? Right? Is the logic okay? Would I be earning rent on it? But because I am only cultivating on the land, it simply means I am foregoing the rent. Concept of opportunity cost. I am simply foregoing the amount of rent I could have earned on it. I'll give you one more example. Imagine I've invested 1000 rupees on the land, right? Either purchasing irrigation equipment or a tractor, etc., whatever it is. I spent money on capital machinery in the land. Now, is it okay if I say rather than spending 1 lakh rupees on the land, if I had kept the same 1 lakh rupees in the bank, I would have earned interest on it. But because I've invested that in the land, don't you think that interest is foregone? That interest will not be earned by me now. So what C2 says is, along with all the expenses that you have incurred, count family labor, also count, right, whatever expenses you have incurred and the interest foregone because of that. Right, the interest that you have foregone because of that. The capital machinery you have purchased, which means you are not earning interest on it. The land you are using, which means you cannot use it to earn rent on it, etc. That is basically the C2 methodology, comprehensive methodology, right, which also accounts for the factors such as land rentals, interest foregone on owned land and fixed capital assets. So C2, is it okay now? C2 will be greater than A2 plus FL. Is the logic okay? C2 will be greater than A2 plus FL. So again, I'll repeat it. These are different methods how the cost of production is calculated by CACP. Are these the only three? Again, I'm saying no. There is A1, there is A2, A2 plus FL, right? C1, C2, C2 star, etc. There are around 9 methods which are used by CACP. But Government of India doesn't consider all of them. It will consider only one, that is A2 plus FL. And whatever is the recommendation of A2 plus FL given by CACP, government says 150% of that I will announce it as MSP. Right? For example, in this case, I told you 1000 rupee, let's say it is A2. A2 plus FL will be 1100 rupees. So 150% of 1100, that is 1650 rupees will be the MSP announced by the government. Right? So this is how the government will announce the MSP before the sowing season, that is before the Rabi as well as Kharif sowing season actually begins. Can I go to the next one? Can I go to the next point here? Right? And having said so, remember the next point as well. Right? All these points are important. I'm going point by point. Please remember them. UPSC can ask you. The MSP is not a constitutional compulsion on the government. Is the logic okay? There is no constitutional provision which says MSP has to be provided by the government. MSP is not mentioned in the constitution. Don't search for it. Which also means if tomorrow Government of India says I will discontinue MSP, will it be allowed? Just think of it. Don't worry about political compulsions, etc., etc. Right? Tomorrow, Government of India says, I will remove MSP. Henceforth, I will not announce MSP. Is it allowed? Of course, yes, it will be allowed. Why? It's not a mandate. There is no law. Right? Remember this. There is absolutely no law which says government should announce MSP. It is basically the government which is worried about so many compulsions in the market. Political aspect, right? Economic aspect, providing welfare to the farmer, distribution of the food grains, etc., etc. That's why Government of India announces MSP. But there is no mandate on the government to announce MSP. Now, I hope you understand why some of the farmers couple of years ago wanted Government of India to introduce a law for MSP. Right? Even today there is a discussion. There should be a law on MSP. Why? Government of India tomorrow might simply discontinue MSP. There is no guarantee on it. If they want, they can do that. Because it is an executive decision. They can do that. So what will happen in the future? Neither you know nor I know. So the farmers or the trade unions were demanding, we want guaranteed MSP. In the sense, there should be a law which will say government should announce MSP. Right? In fact, that was then the discussion. I'll come to that particular point also. What would be the advantage? What would be the concern if at all it is done? We'll understand it later. Don't worry. Let me continue. As per the observations or as per the report that was published by Niti Aayog, slightly older report, but anyways, remember the data. More than 81% of the farmers actually have the knowledge about MSP. They know about MSP. But having said so, all the farmers don't sell their crop under MSP to the government. Remember the next point. Right? I said more than 81%, more than 4/5 of the farmers in India know about MSP. But all the farmers do not sell the crop to the government under MSP. Why? First and foremost, remember this, government doesn't need to procure every crop in India. They don't need to procure every crop. Whatever is required, they will purchase. Even though they want, let's say, rice, that is paddy and wheat, they will not purchase all the paddy and wheat in the market. They will purchase as per their requirement. I hope you understand. They will purchase as per their requirement. So which means, let's say hypothetically, understand this carefully, which means, let's say hypothetically, there are two farmers who have cultivated paddy in a village. Is there a guarantee that both the farmers will be able to sell the crop to the government? Guarantee. Understand the term guarantee here. Is there a guarantee that both the farmers will be able to sell the crop to the government? Absolutely no. Why? Please understand this. Government has a lot of conditions. Government has a lot of conditions. In fact, there's a term called by, there is a process used by the government which is called as open-ended procurement policy. Open-ended procurement policy. What do you mean by open-ended procurement policy? A farmer can take the crop, right? Farmer can take the crop to the Food Corporation of India and sell the crop to the Food Corporation of India. That is open-ended procurement policy, but it's not complete. There are conditions. I'll repeat the process here. Open-ended procurement policy simply means a farmer can take the crop, go to the Food Corporation of India, sell the crop to Food Corporation of India. But please understand there are conditions. What are the conditions? One, government should want to procure the food grain. Right? What if a farmer will take sugar cane to the Food Corporation of India? Do you think government requires sugar cane? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. They will never want sugar cane. What happens to sugar cane? Give me some time. I'll come to that also. So one, government should want to procure this crop. Point number one. Second point, that crop is not just sufficient. They would want to purchase a specific type of a crop. I'll come to that. Right? It's not just the paddy. It's not just that they want to purchase paddy. They want to purchase specific type of paddy. That is also very important. Why? Let me connect it to current affairs. Right? Just connect it. Have you heard the term parboiled rice? Last year it was there in the newspaper. Have you heard of parboiled rice? Right? What is this idea of a parboiled rice? Simple. Rice, that is with husk, paddy. Paddy is nothing but rice grain with husk. That is called as paddy. So the paddy, right, will basically be boiled for certain short period of time. Right? It will be boiled, then the husk will be removed. Right? Because it is partially boiled, it is called as a parboiled. Is it okay? Partially boiled. Right? In short, this is called as parboiled rice. So the state government of Telangana wanted the central government to purchase whatever parboiled rice has been produced in their state. Central government said, no, I will not procure it. I don't require parboiled rice because already the parboiled rice that is there with me is more than sufficient. I hope you understand. Right? The parboiled rice stocks which are there with me, they are already more than sufficient. If I have more than sufficient requirement of this crop, why should I go ahead and procure it? They did not procure the parboiled rice from the state of Telangana. So understand the concept here. They use a term open-ended procurement policy, but that term open-ended is slightly misleading. Most of you will believe that open-ended means at any point of time you can sell the crop to the Food Corporation of India. Not necessarily. Right? One, government should be procuring this crop. The second, government should be requiring the amount of stocks for distribution. And third, there are only certain dates during which government will procure. It's not that throughout the year they'll simply open the shutter of FCI and will keep on waiting for the farmers. Absolutely no. Generally, certain time period, right, they will announce from this date to this date, I will procure the food grain. So that is the basic idea of open-ended procurement policy. So now, is it okay if I say all the farmers will not be able to sell the crop to government? Is it okay? Right? All the farmers will not be able to sell the crop to government. That's a fact. Everybody will not get the benefit of MSP. Right? So MSP in some of the states is paid late. In some of the states, right, they have given examples also, Maharashtra, Gujarat, etc. In some of the states, the food grains are purchased today, but the MSP is given to the farmers after 15 days, after 30 days, etc. like this. So the farmers will simply say, no, I don't want to sell it to you, right? I will give it to somebody else in the open market. Next, the farmers want to sell the crop, but FCI procurement, right, the agency procurement that is done, it is not present in every market in India. There are only limited number, or there are only limited areas where they have set up the godowns in the market. You'll have to approach the FCI, start selling the crop to them. That is time consuming. Distance becomes a problem. FCI procures rice and wheat, right? FCI procures rice and wheat majorly. They do not procure all the other crops. The major procurement is done in terms of rice and wheat. Now there is a term called a surplus state here. Follow this very carefully. There's something called as a surplus state. Now what do you mean by surplus state? Let me explain it to you. Right? There is a scheme by the name of National Food Security Act. All of you heard of it? National Food Security Act. Under the National Food Security Act, per beneficiary, again the beneficiaries are divided into two parts, because under NFSA there is a system called as PDS, Public Distribution System. Under Public Distribution System, there are two types of beneficiaries. There are two types of beneficiaries. One, right, I've given it here. Have a look at this. I'll go back to the slide, don't worry. Right, one kind of a beneficiary is called as Antyodaya Anna Yojana card holder, AAY. Antyodaya Anna Yojana, Antyodaya Anna Yojana card holder. Right, under Antyodaya Anna Yojana card holder, if you are the beneficiary, that house will get 35 kgs of food grain. That family will get 35 kgs of food grain for every month. Apart from Antyodaya, there is one more type of beneficiary under public distribution system, which is called as a priority household, PHH, priority household. In a priority household, every identified beneficiary will get 5 kgs. Is it okay? Right? Any difficulty, please do let me know. Under NFSA, there are different types, right? We have midday meals, that is PM Poshan. We have integrated child development scheme. But the most important one is public distribution scheme, right? Public distribution system. Under the public distribution, there are two types of beneficiaries which are covered. One is called as Antyodaya card holder, where any house that has this card, Antyodaya card, Antyodaya means those which are very, very poor. I hope you understand. Those who are poorest of the poor. And many of you will simply say, sir, what do you mean by poorest of the poor? Within the poorest or within the poor sections of the society, there are certain people who are much more poor, poorest within that. For example, artisans, those who are working as painters, those who are rickshaw pullers, all these are generally considered as poorest of poor. And they or those houses are covered under one more scheme called as Antyodaya Anna Yojana. Antyodaya Anna Yojana. So argument is there are certain houses which have Antyodaya card. Those houses will get 35 kgs of food grain, and priority households, in that whatever is the coverage of beneficiaries, per beneficiary I will give you 5 kgs. This is the coverage under NFSA. Now come to the point I was discussing. Here, right? FCI procures rice and wheat in surplus states. Huge amount of rice and wheat they procure from surplus states. What do you mean by this? Imagine there is one state. I'll take a simple number. Imagine there is one state, and in this state there are priority households. I'll take simple example, understand this. There are priority households. And in these priority households, let's say there are 10 people, 10 beneficiaries. There are 10 people, 10 beneficiaries. Now, is it okay if I say for every beneficiary you will give 5 kgs? Which means you require how many kgs of food grains here? How many kgs of food grain you need to procure in this right area for distribution? You require only 50 kgs. Is the logic okay? Right, I'm assuming only priority households are there, and in these priority households 10 beneficiaries are there, and per beneficiary I'll have to give 5 kgs, which means for distribution of food grains in the state I require how many kgs of food grains? I will require 50 kgs of food grains. Now what if in this state the production of the food grain is 400 kgs? Requirement for distribution is how much? 50 kgs. Production is 400 kgs. Such states are referred to as surplus states. Is it okay? Such states are referred to as surplus states. Why these are called as surplus? The production is much higher compared to what is the requirement of food grains to be distributed under the food security. Now what is the use here? Why are they procuring more and more rice and wheat from surplus states? Reason is simple. If one state is surplus, can there be deficit state as well? Think of this and answer. If one state is a surplus state, can there be a deficit state as well? That is, the coverage is much higher, requirement of food grain is much higher, but the production in the state of that crop is lower. In that state, from where will you get the food grains then? I hope you understand my point now. In such state, where will you get the food grain? You will move from surplus state to deficit states. You will procure more in the surplus state, move them to the deficit states. Right? That is the reason why FCI procurement is concentrated in states such as Punjab and Haryana. Right? Punjab and Haryana are the major examples of surplus states where the production is much higher than what is the actual requirement of food grain. Right? So FCI mainly concentrated is focused around the concept of the purchasing or the procurement of paddy and wheat. Now there is also paperwork that is involved in some of the states. This will prohibit the farmers, right? This will basically prohibit the farmers from selling the crop to the government. Right? So these are some of the reasons why Niti Aayog says lot of the farmers, despite having an opportunity to sell it to the Food Corporation of India, they will choose not to sell it. Can I add one more here? Can I add one more factor here? Market dynamics. Market dynamics. What do you mean by market dynamics? Let me give a very simple example. In the last 6 to 8 months, the price of wheat has constantly kept on increasing. You should have read it in the newspaper now, right? The price of the wheat has kept on increasing like this. For the month of December, the cereal inflation was more than 20%. For the month of January, it is more than 25%, which means the prices of these crops is increasing. Now you tell me, here is a farmer. The farmer now realizes that the market price of the wheat is much higher than what is the MSP paid by the government. Right? The market price of the wheat is much higher than what is the MSP paid by the government. Will the farmer even then take the crop to the MSP, that is FCI, or the farmer will sell it in the market? I hope you understand. Right? The farmer, when they realize that the market price is higher, will they sell more and more crop to FCI or in the market? They will end up selling it in the market. I hope you understand. They will end up selling in the market. Now some of you will simply say, sir, but if that is true, then the market supply increases, prices should cool down. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. Why? I'll tell you. Look at the market dynamics here. Understand all of the points carefully. When you supply to the market, if the supply increases, prices should cool down. But what if the demand in the international market is very high? Is the logic okay? Right? Now you will ask me, sir, why? Why in the international market the demand for the crop is very high? Russia-Ukraine war. Simple. Russia-Ukraine war. Right? Yesterday I've told you this. Ukraine is basically a food basket. It is a wheat basket. It exports a lot of wheat to the international market. And because of the war between Russia and Ukraine, the export of wheat has been affected. In the international market, the prices are very high for wheat. So don't you think that provides an opportunity for these traders to purchase wheat from the domestic market and export it, thereby making profit? And that is the precise reason. Have a look at this now. That is the precise reason. Now there is a concern that if you keep on exporting wheat, supply in the domestic market will fall, because wheat cannot be cultivated on weekly basis. There's a cycle. How many of you know what is the general number of days that is required to cultivate wheat? Let me see. What is the general number of days which is required to cultivate wheat? What is the cycle? Production cycle of wheat? 145 to 150 days. Right? Around 145 to 150 days. Around 4 to 5 months. That is the production cycle of wheat. Right? That is the precise reason you cannot cultivate on a weekly basis. Now suddenly there is a shortage in the domestic market. What will you do then? All of us require wheat in India. I hope you know that. In most of the states, wheat is a staple food. So if the traders will purchase, export it to international market, supply in the domestic market will fall short. That is the reason. I hope you understand. That is the reason why Government of India has restricted export of wheat now. There is a lot of concern regarding cereal inflation. Please be very careful. Okay. So what are the other points regarding this? HLC, High Level Committee. HLC stands for High Level Committee. High Level Committee, which was headed by Shanta Kumar, MP, has pointed out that only around 6% of the farmers that they surveyed, and not all of India, that they surveyed, right, basically got the benefit of MSP. And as per 77th round of NSSO, percentage of the percentage of the output that is sold to the FCI under MSP, in some of the crops it is 0%, some of the crops it is around 8%, some of the crops it is 15%, maximum it is around 25%. Right? So these are some of the very important points regarding MSP. Any doubts regarding anything that I've discussed so far, please do let me know. And if you're following the discussion, you will realize that I'm connecting a lot of current affairs points here. Please be very, very careful. Please be very, very careful, right? You should know a lot of these current affairs points. For example, sir, you are talking about so much about wheat. It's not only that this year there is a problem of wheat production in India. Last year also wheat production was a problem. Right? And I'll tell you, in geography, if you have not learnt it, please don't worry. In geography, you'll come across this. Now, there is one more concern. There could be early onset of heat in India. Already there is a concern that heat wave, right, will happen in the next couple of weeks in India. And this is the time period when wheat is actually, right, seeding. I hope you understand. This is a time period when the wheat seeds are actually growing. And if there is an early onset of the heat, that is heat wave in India, there is a concern that wheat production might be affected. Has it happened earlier in India? Yes, last year. Best example is last year itself. Last year also there was an early onset of heat wave in India, and as a result of that, the wheat production actually declined by 2.5%. That was one of the reason. Just understand the sequence here. Just understand the sequence, right? In the month of March and April, you will harvest wheat. Is it okay? March and April, you will harvest wheat. And right, in the month of February and March, if there is a heat wave, the seeds, right, the quality of the seeds or the growth of the seeds would be hampered. Production would come down. And that's the reason I said earlier, that is last year, the production of wheat actually came down by 2.5%. Now, immediately after that, there was an outbreak of Russia and Ukraine, right? In that season only, there was an outbreak of Russia-Ukraine war. And in the month of May, you will see that government of India taking measures to control the export of wheat. And that has continued. Even today, there are restrictions on the wheat exports. Any doubts so far regarding whatever I have discussed? Let me know. Who are eligible for the priority households? It will vary. It will vary because I'll tell you the fact here. It is the state government which will identify the beneficiaries. Center will not identify. State government will identify the beneficiaries. Okay, right? Because the state government will identify the beneficiaries from one state to another state. They will have, right, different criteria, or they will have their own criteria. Any doubts regarding what I've discussed so far? Please do let me know. Right, MSP is important. You should know about it. You should know a lot about MSP. Right, and in fact, if you have seen the UPSC papers, generally you will find one question regarding the concept of MSP in the prelims as well as in the mains. Okay, done then. Break. Everybody wants break. Okay, so at least for break you will speak in the classroom. When I ask questions, you will not answer, but at least for break you will type and say, break kab doge. Done then. Okay, we'll start at 11:43. I'll start again at 11:43. Take a break. Okay, welcome back. Am I audible? Can we start? Am I audible? Okay, let's start. So like I said, very recently there was a discussion that Government of India should provide legally recognized MSP, or we should provide legal backing to MSP, right? What do you mean by legal backing? Simple. Right now there is no law, absolutely no law which says government should provide MSP. And when you say government should provide legal backing to MSP, it simply means a law must be introduced. Simple. A law must be introduced under which government should provide MSP to the farmer. Why? I've told you. Why there is a need for this law, why they are demanding, I've told you. Because right now it's not mandatory for the government to announce MSP because they have certain compulsions to take care, because they want to take care of certain objectives. They are announcing MSP. So tomorrow if they want to withdraw, they can do that. But now if there is a law, if there is a law which states that Government of India should provide the MSP, government will not have any option. Can I give an example here? Right, I'll give an example, just connect the concept to that. Just now we have discussed, some time ago, we have discussed certain aspect related to NFSA. I have not discussed all of it. I'll discuss, don't worry. All the aspects of NFSA I have not discussed. I'll discuss that, don't worry. But we have discussed certain aspects of National Food Security Act. And in that I told you, the beneficiary, right, if it is a priority household, 5 kgs per person per month. It is a right. Remember this. Under NFSA, it is a right of the beneficiary. It's not a charity of the government. It is the right. It is a compulsion now on the government to provide 5 kgs per person per month. It's a compulsion. Either the term right can be used here, or you can use the term entitlement. Any difficulty regarding both of the terms, please do let me know. Either you can simply say it's a right of every beneficiary that they will get food grains now. Government doesn't have any option. Or it is the entitlement of every beneficiary, not every citizen, every beneficiary, that they will get 5 kgs of food grain. Right? So the argument is in the same way, why don't we provide legal backing? Right? We have given it for food now. Why don't we provide the same legal backing for MSP? So what is the advantage if you give the legal backing? What is the concern if you provide a legal backing? A critical evaluation of this I've given here. Point 1, it will provide guaranteed returns to all the farmers. Right? What do you mean by this? Whether you are cultivating wheat, paddy, copra, etc., doesn't matter. You will get the MSP now. Right? That is the meaning of legal backing. Again, please understand how it will be provided. Whether it will be provided, you don't know. Neither do I know. But right now, if it is provided, what does it actually mean? What is the advantage? Only that we can envisage. So 1, it will definitely provide guaranteed returns to the farmers rather than depending on the market or the market dynamics. Now every farmer can sell it to government and purchase it. Get the money from the government. Second, majority of the procurement right now, it is centered around the Punjab and Haryana surplus states. Now if there is a guaranteed MSP like this, legal backing is given, then all the farmers from other states as well now can sell to government. Whether the government wants it, doesn't want it, doesn't matter. They will be able to sell it, get the MSP. Sir, is it possible? Is it possible that government will be forced to purchase even if they don't want it? Yes, definitely yes. I can give an example. Earlier in the USA, right, not now, many decades ago in USA, a similar concept was introduced by the USA government for milk. I hope you understand this. A similar concept, that is, you sell me the milk, at any the situation in the market, I will be purchasing the milk from you. You don't worry. You can anyway sell it to me. That concept was introduced by the USA government. There was a point of time when government did not know what to do with milk. I hope you understand this. Right? They basically purchased milk, started distributing, started selling in the market, but farmers started producing more and more milk, selling it to government in order to earn more money. There was a point when government started converting the milk into cheese and storing it in rented warehouses. They started taking warehouses on rent because they did not have storage capacity. So the argument is, has it happened earlier in the past in any other country? Yes, USA is an example of it. So these are the first 2 points. Next, there is a lot of distress in the agriculture sector. Distress means farmers are not able to earn sufficient amount of income. They have borrowed money, they are unable to repay it, and there is a reason for it. Please understand this. In case of India, the cultivation is done, but for cultivation to happen, you require irrigation. Any difficulty here? For cultivation of the crops, you require irrigation. And certain amount of irrigation that is done in India, it is directly dependent on monsoon. You are directly dependent on monsoon rainfall. You are not using any other methodology of irrigation. You are dependent on monsoon rainfall. And please remember this, there is no guarantee of how much rainfall you are going to get in monsoon. Is it okay? Even today, there is absolutely no guarantee. How much rainfall will you get in monsoon? You can only give an estimation. Will that be accurate or not? That is also not sure. Right? You will come across this. When you learn about geography, even if you don't learn about geography, come the month of May. Right? Because generally they talk about monsoon will start from the month of May, because first week of June, you will see onset of monsoon. So understand the logic here. You are dependent on the monsoon rainfall, which is uncertain. You don't know how much rainfall you are going to receive. What about a situation where there is a less rainfall, right? Your crop is affected. What if there is excess rainfall? Again, the crop is affected. So either there is a shortfall of rainfall or excess rainfall, farmers will suffer because of it. And let's assume there is a normal rainfall, good amount of rainfall. Then also farmers will suffer because the supply to the market will increase. When the supply to the market will increase, obviously the market prices will fall and farmers will not be able to earn sufficient amount of income. So argument here is very simple. There is no guaranteed income whenever you are dependent on the market. That has created a lot of stress in the agriculture sector. Now, if you start selling it to government, government has told you how much money they will pay you. You will be able to earn sufficient, or let's say guaranteed amount of income, will reduce the stress in the agriculture sector. Next, obviously more and more farmers will be covered. Coverage of the farmers will increase. Right, so these are some of the advantages or benefits which are basically attached to the concept of giving legal recognition to the MSP. But having said so, there are certain issues or concerns. There are certain problems related to this. What are the problems? One, how much MSP will be decided? Right, on what methodology you will decide MSP? Don't you think that's also very important? Right now, Government of India says 150% of A2 plus FL. I'll repeat it. Right now, Government of India says 150% of A2 plus EFL. Now, what if Government of India says, okay, I will give you legal recognition, but it will be just 100% of A2. 100% of A2. So, no doubt MSP legal backing is given. But how much is the MSP that is calculated? That will also have a huge influence over how much MSP will be paid by the government. Second, if the Government of India starts providing, right, the MSP to all the farmers like this, what will happen to the fiscal deficit? What will happen to the revenue deficit of the government? Right, the deficit of the government will suddenly balloon. Next, there will be a huge impact on the traders in the market. Right? What do you mean by impact on the traders in the market? Imagine there are other buyers of wheat in the market. Government also says, I will purchase wheat. You can sell it to me at any point of time, any type of wheat I'll purchase. If government will start offering 1,000 rupees, you tell me market prices, will it not go above 1,000 rupees? Don't you think the market prices will go above 1,000 rupees? Because there is one more buyer for the farmer now, right? You are the trader. Let's say you are the trader. Sir, what do you mean by trader here? It could be any middleman, right? For example, if you have been to, let's say, superstores or big stores, they also sell wheat. They will purchase from a middleman. So the argument here is, right, you are a trader, I am a farmer, I want to sell it to you, but you will say only 900 rupees. But on the other hand, government of India has provided legally guaranteed MSP now. I can sell it to the government, I'll get simply 1,000 rupees. So why will I sell it to you? Why will I sell it to at 900? I will rather sell it to the government at more than 1,000 rupees. Now, as a result of this legally guaranteed MSP, market prices will start increasing, and that might cause food inflation in the market. That might simply cause food inflation in the market. Okay. Now that is one more impact. And next, even if government of India procures all the food grains, if the government procures all the food grains, do we have sufficient warehousing capacity here? Do we have sufficient warehousing capacity? Does government have sufficient warehousing capacity? Answer is no. They do not have sufficient warehousing capacity. And one more concern, I'll write it here. Have a look at this. What about the amber box subsidies then? What about amber box subsidies? Do you remember amber box subsidy that we have discussed yesterday? Right? What do you think will happen to the government of India's amber box subsidy? That will simply balloon and go beyond control. So these are some of the aspects of the concepts related to giving a legal recognition, giving legal backing to the concept of MSP. Done? Can I go to the next one? Right, the next is food subsidy, but before this, be very careful about sugarcane and be worried about sugarcane. Why? I'll tell you. Right, imagine here is paddy or wheat for that matter. Right, there is a paddy or wheat. Can I simply say government will announce MSP? Government agencies will procure. Any difficulty? Please do let me know. Government announces MSP and government agencies will purchase the food grain and later distribute it. But in the context of sugarcane, slightly different. The sugarcane, government announces, remember this, government announces FRP. Government announces FRP, fair and remunerative price. Fair and remunerative price, FRP. And right, again, when I say government, it is actually Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs. Same process. CACP will recommend, Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs will announce. So FRP is announced. Point number one. Point number two, the sugar cane is sold by the farmer to the mill owner. To the mill owner. Right? Sugarcane is not purchased by the government. Sugarcane mill, right, will purchase, that is sugar mill owners, right, will purchase the sugarcane from the farmers. And remember this, the FRP that is announced by the government, whatever is the FRP that is announced by the government, it is the price that is paid by the mill owners. Is it okay? It is the price that is paid by the mill owners to the farmers. So that is the basic idea of sugarcane. Please be very, very careful. Now, right, why does government announce FRP here? Right? Why not government procure it? Why does government announce FRP here? Government doesn't have any requirement of purchasing sugarcane because it doesn't distribute sugarcane. That's the reason government doesn't procure it. Point number one. Second, then why not allow the mill owners to decide the price? Why? Why is that the government will announce FRP here? Reason is that whenever sugarcane is harvested, I repeat, whenever sugarcane is harvested, right? Basically the content in that, sucrose content, I hope you understand, sucrose content, that is liquid content in that, it is very, very high. If the sugarcane is harvested, kept like that for 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days like this, the sucrose content in the sugarcane will keep on dropping, will keep on falling. Now imagine you are the mill owner, I am the farmer. I have harvested the sugarcane, government is not interfering, you can decide the price. Don't you think you have more leverage in the transaction? Think of it. I'll repeat it again. Right? Process is simple. Sugarcane is harvested, sucrose content in the sugarcane is highest at that point of time. As the time passes by, after 2 days, after 3 days, sucrose content will suddenly drop like this. If that is the situation, I've harvested my sugarcane, I've brought it to you, I want to sell it to you. Who has more leverage here? Who has more power in the transaction? You have more leverage. Because if you basically delay the purchasing by 2 days or 1 day like this, quality will suddenly drop, and I'm aware of it. So what will happen? You will have the power, you will start dictating the prices. That is a precise reason. Remember this, in the context of sugarcane, it is the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs which will announce FRP, fair and remunerative prices. Is it okay? And this price has to be paid by sugar mill owners. This has to be paid by sugar mill owners to the farmers. Right? They will have to pay this price, nothing else. Right? This only has to be paid by the mill owners. But having said so, there is one more point here. The central government will announce FRP for sugarcane. State governments, the state governments will announce one more price, which is called as state advisory prices. The state government announces one more price which is called as state advisory prices, SAP. Remember this. Central government announces FRP. State government announces one more price which is called as a state advisory prices. And generally, understand point by point, generally in case of India, one, not all the states cultivate sugarcane. Very few states actually cultivate sugarcane. Second, if a state government announces right SAP, generally SAP is greater than FRP. I hope you understand this point. If the state governments announces SAP, their announcement of SAP is higher than FRP. And if SAP is higher than FRP, the mill owners will have to pay SAP to the farmers, not FRP. Right? The farmers will be paid SAP, state advisory prices, not FRP. Right? That is a basic idea in the context of sugarcane. Right? Any doubts regarding this? Please do let me know. Otherwise, I'll enter into the concept of food subsidy now. The discussion regarding food subsidy. So remember these particular points. FRP binding on mill owners, I've told that already. Yes, mill owners will have to pay that only. You cannot have the choice. Again, having said so, assuming SAP is lower than FRP. If SAP is greater than FRP, then by default, mill owners will pay SAP. Okay? Any other doubts? Any other doubts? Okay, no doubts. Let me go ahead. Next concept I want to discuss is food subsidy. Important, please be very careful. Right, the idea of a food subsidy. Every year government of India, I'll show you a graph here. Have a look at this. Every year government of India incurs a huge amount of money in the form of food subsidies. For example, in 14 and 15, it was right 113 lakh crore rupees. Right, I'm sorry, 1.13 lakh crore rupees. Right, in 15 and 16, 1.3 lakh crore rupees. 16 and 17, 1.3 lakh again. 17 and 18, 1.4 lakh. Right, 18, 19, so on and so forth. You can see the numbers. So every year, government of India incurs a huge amount of money in the form of food subsidy. But what do you mean by food subsidy here? Why is the government of India incurring food subsidy? To understand that, let me start with the concept of public distribution system first. I'll go back to previous 2 slides. Have patience. Now, in case of India, even before independence, we had the concept of a public distribution system. Over a period of time, this has been refined. Right? We have refined it. Refined in the sense, earlier, It was a universal public distribution system, right? I hope you understand the terms universal now. Earlier, we had universal public distribution system. Now, you tell me, having discussed certain concepts of public distribution system earlier, do you think today we have a universal public distribution system? Think of it. I just think of it. I have not discussed the features, I know that. But you just think of what we have discussed so far and tell me, do we have a universal public distribution system in India? Answer is no. That should be very clear to you. Why? Some time ago, I told you that we cover certain households which are called as a priority household, and we cover certain households which are called as a Antyodaya household. I did not say that we cover all the houses in India. I hope you understand my statement. I never said that under the public distribution system, all the houses are covered in India. If I had said everybody in India would get food grains from the government, that would simply become universal public distribution system. In fact, earlier it was there. But over a period of time, Government of India realized that universal distribution system is not going to work out, because the amount of expenditure that the government will keep on incurring because of a universal PDS will be very, very high. That is the precise reason what we have done is, we have discontinued the concept of universal PDS. Now we have introduced the concept of targeted PDS, targeted public distribution system, targeted public distribution system. Now, how does the targeted public distribution system work out? Simple. Here is the farmer. From the farmer, food grains are purchased, right? I can use the term food grains are purchased, or else I can also use the term food grains are procured. Any difficulty in understanding the terminology? Please do let me know. Farmer is there. From the farmer, food grains are either purchased or procured. Now, there are two ways through which you can, right, purchase the food grain. One, the central government agency can purchase the food grain. Central government agency. Sir, any example? Food Corporation of India. Right, so Food Corporation of India will purchase. Now what they will do? They will create a pool called as a central pool. Have a look at this. They will create a pool called as central pool. Understand the process here. Slightly technical, understand it. Now what is the use of this central pool? From the central pool, how much food grains should be issued to each of the states will be decided and allocated. Is it okay? Is the logic okay? Right? Let's say, why, sir, why is the central government doing it? Very simple. It is the central government which has implemented National Food Security Act. Let me know if you are finding this difficult. Central government has announced National Food Security Act. The money on this is paid by the central government. And now, central government says, I will tell each of the states how many people will be covered under this. Is the logic okay? In each of the states, how many people will be covered under this? I will tell. But let's say, right, let's say in one state, 1 crore people in the state will be covered under NFSA. Who are these 1 crore people? That will be identified by the state government. Understand the process here. I'll repeat it. Central government has implemented National Food Security Act. It's a Government of India scheme. So money on this will be paid by the Government of India. So government says, throughout India, I want to cover 2/3 of total population. Right, let's go point by point. All of India, I want to cover 2/3 of total population. And when you said 2/3 of total population, right, which population by the way? Which population by the way here? It is the population of 2011. Is it okay? It is the population of 2011. Whatever was the population of 2011, 2/3 of it I will cover. But next point is important here. I will not identify the beneficiaries in each of the state. I will simply say each of the state how many people will be covered under this. But who are the actual beneficiaries? They will be identified by respective state government. right? Who are the beneficiaries will be identified, right, by respective, right, beneficiaries. Any difficulty? Any difficulty? And point number 2, under this also government says I don't have to cover equally the population in urban India as well as rural India. No, right? Why? Population rural India is very, very high. So what I'll do? Population rural India coverage will be very high. Population urban India coverage will be lesser. That is 50% of urban population will be covered and 75% of rural population will be covered. But total population out of India, total population in India, the population that will be covered will be 2/3. That is around 67%. Can I go to the next one here? Can I go to the next one? Please do let me know. Now imagine in one state, I'll take simple numbers. Imagine one state, 10 people are beneficiaries. And let's assume all of them are priority households. 10 people are beneficiaries. Under NFSA, how much kgs will be provided per beneficiary? Already mentioned, 5 kgs. So 10 into 5 will be how much? 50 kgs. Now central government says, from the central pool, I will allocate 50 kgs to the state government. Simple. Central government says, from the central pool, I will allocate 50 kgs to the state government. Right? And state government has identified these 10 people. State will distribute, right, 5 kgs to all the 10 people. This is one methodology. This is one methodology. This is basically the concept of centralized procurement. Right? I've given the same picture here. This is the methodology which is called as a centralized procurement. That is, the central government agency will procure the food grains, allocate it to the state government. Now the state governments will distribute to the beneficiaries, because state governments knows who are the beneficiaries, and it is the state government which will distribute the food grains to the beneficiaries. This is one way. Another way, right, have a look at this. Another way is decentralized procurement. Another way is a decentralized procurement. What do you mean by decentralized procurement? Simple. State government will procure the food grain, not the FCI. State government agencies will procure the food grains and distribute the food grains amongst the beneficiaries. Is it okay? State government, decentralized means what? State government will procure the food grains and distribute the food grains. Now, if the state government is purchasing food grains, who will give money for it? Somebody has to pay money. So that's the reason whenever you talk about decentralized procurement, the procurement and distribution is done by the state government, but the charges are paid by the central government. The central government will transfer certain commissions, certain charges to the state government. So centralized procurement, decentralized procurement. Either of the two can be used by the government here. Can I go to the next step here? Can I go to the next step? Any difficulty so far? Let me know. Right? These are technical. I know that these are technical, but you are supposed to know all of it. Supposed to know all of it. Sir, why? Why should I know it? Just think of this. Can UPSC ask you this question? Can UPSC ask you this question? That is, who will take care of the distribution part under National Food Security Act? Very simple statement, by the way. Who will take care of the distribution part under National Food Security Act? Central pool. My dear, central government agency, that is Food Corporation of India, will purchase food grain and start distribution of the food grains to every state government based on how many beneficiaries are there. When central government agencies will purchase and right put the food grains together, this is called as central pool. Right? That is called as central pool. Do we follow decentralized procurement? Yes. Many states there is a decentralized procurement. Okay. Done. Right. So please be very, very careful. Center will basically allocate number of beneficiaries. How many beneficiaries should be there in the state? Center will decide. But who are the beneficiaries? Identification is done by the state government. Distribution of the food grains is done by the state government. Okay, right? So these are certain very important points. Please be very, very careful. Now, what are the provisions under NFSA? Point number one, 2/3 of total India's population will be covered under this. 2/3, right? 50% of urban population and 75% of rural population. Now look at the criticism here itself. Look at the criticism also. Don't you think if you're going to cover the 2011 population, right, that is wrong? Wrong in the sense, we are in 2023 now. Even today, you are taking the population of 2011 as a base. Don't you think over a period of time, the population of India has increased? Right? So don't you think the coverage should have been higher? Think of this. Don't you think in that case, coverage should have been higher? Right? That is one of the concerns regarding this. Please remember this. We are using the base of 2011. Sir, you will ask me, sir, why 2011 has been taken as a base here? Census data. Simple. Census data, right? Census data of 2011 has been taken here. But even that is outdated now. It's more than 12 years since the census was conducted. So we will have to revise it. But the problem is which will be taken as a base, because we do not have the next census. I hope you're reading in the newspapers. The next census is yet to be conducted. So 50% and 75% of rural and urban population respectively. Second, there are two types of beneficiaries under this. If you are a priority household, PHH, if you are a priority household, you will be given, right, 5 kgs per person per month. Right, 5 kgs of food grain per person per month. As expected, there is one question, sir, food grain, which food grain? Now, simple question to all of you. Don't you think from one state to another state, what food grains will be issued will be different? Is it okay? From one state to another state, when I say 5 kgs of food grain, what food grains are issued will be different. Right? Why? Imagine you want to distribute food grains in a state where the people consume rice. Can you distribute wheat in that state? Think of it. Right? You are distributing food grains in a state where wheat is majorly consumed. Can you distribute rice in that state? So that's the reason. Remember this. From one state to another state, right, what kind of food grains are distributed, that varies, because the consumption patterns, food habits of the people are different throughout India. Okay, so next point, poorest of the poor will continue to be covered under Antyodaya Anna Yojana. Don't ask me, sir, what is AAY? Antyodaya Anna Yojana, it is there here. Antyodaya Anna Yojana. And under Antyodaya Anna Yojana, per household, we will be giving 35 kgs of food grains. Next, there is a redressal mechanism. Redressal means, what if you are not getting 35 kgs of food grain? What if they are not accepting your beneficiary status, etc., etc.? In such cases, at district level, there is an officer, district grievance redressal officer. You can file your application with this person. If this person is not able to resolve it, then, right, there is one more authority, that is a state grievance redressal officer. At a higher level, we have SGRO, state grievance redressal officer. Okay. Next, states will be identifying the beneficiaries. Right, states will be identifying the beneficiaries, and right under this, there is a proposal to use Aadhaar, information communication technologies, etc., to reduce the leakage in the system, to reduce the diversion in the system, etc. Right? So these are certain very important provisions under National Food Security Act. Now, having looked at all of this, come to this. Come to this now. Food subsidy. Now, what is this basic idea of food subsidy? Simple. Government will purchase food grains, right? Distribute the food grains. Now, don't you think when government will purchase and distribute, government will incur expenditure? Any difficulty? Please do let me know. Government will purchase and distribute food grain. for purchasing and distributing, don't you think government will incur expenditure? And when they distribute the food grain, today, right, as of now, government says, I will collect 0 rupees from the beneficiaries. Until very recently, it was for every kg of rice, it was given at 3 rupees per kg. For every kg of wheat, the price that was collected was 2 rupees per kg. For every kg of coarse grains, the charge that was collected was 1 rupee per kg for all of them. So understand this, whenever rice, wheat and coarse grains were issued, certain prices were collected by the agencies, and this is called as issue price. This is referred to as issue price. Remember this, issue price. Now for the next 1 year, what is the issue price under NFSA? Right, I hope you have read the newspaper. What is the issue price under NFSA? For the next 1 year, the issue price has been reduced to a grand 0 rupees. That is free of cost. Right, has been reduced to 0 rupees, free of cost. No charges will be collected from you. It is free of cost. So have a look at this. Until very recently, right, the government paid money, purchased food grains, moved them, that is transported them, stored them, then distributed the food grains. And government incurred a huge amount of money, and part of it, a small part of it, was collected back by the government in the form of issue price. But either cases, understand this, either you collect issue price or you don't collect any issue price, don't you think the expenses that are incurred by the government are higher than issue prices? Right? Let me know if you're finding this difficult. Government will pay MSP, purchase it, transport it, right, and now distribute it. Don't you think government will be incurring more than 3 rupees on a kg of rice there? The expenses incurred will be more than that. Right? In fact, various surveys have shown the amount of expenditure that is incurred by the government for these kind of crops is 10 times the issue price. 10 times. In many of the crops, it is 10 times the issue price. Which means, if government is selling 1 kg of rice to you, collecting 3 rupees, government has actually incurred more than 30 rupees to provide that 1 kg of rice to you. So the amount of subsidy that was incurred by the government was very, very high. That is exactly what you will see in the graph here. The amount of subsidy that was incurred by the government was very, very high. And there is always a concern related to this. Even today there is a concern. The subsidy, that is a food subsidy bill, it's not manageable. It's increasing year by year. It's very, very high. Initially, right, initially when it was implemented from 14 and 15, because NFSA 2013, National Food Security Act 2013, the act was passed in 2013. So initially when it was proposed, we thought the expenses will be somewhere around 90,000 crore rupees. Somewhere around 90,000 crore rupees. Now see what is the expected expenditure. For 21-22, the expected expenditure is 2.8 lakh crore rupees. 2021, it was 5.2 lakh crore rupees. 19 and 20, 1.6 lakh crore rupees, etc., etc. So the amount of food subsidy is actually, right, the burden of food subsidy is very, very high for the government. Now, what do you mean by food subsidy? How does the government calculate it? Let me give you the basic idea here. Let me give a basic idea. First, you will have to calculate economic cost. You'll have to calculate what is the economic cost, and please be very, very careful with this. I'm telling you this very clearly. Please be very careful. I'll tell you why. Until now, this is where the technicality will come into picture. Until now, government purchased the food grains, sold and collected certain amount. Is the argument okay with all of you? Please do let me know. Until now, right, that is till the end of 2022, government purchased, sold the food grain, collected money from you. But in this year, at least let's hope next year it will not continue. In this year, government says, I will purchase, I will sell. I will not collect anything from you. Right? So this issue price, will have to be very, very careful with this. Whatever books say, that will not be applicable this year. If the same system continues even for next 5 to 6 years, then whatever formula or whatever methodology is given in a book, it is useless. Why? Issue price now is reduced to 0 rupees, which means government is not collecting any money. I hope you understand. Government is no way collecting any money. In that case, food subsidy will actually change. Okay, now have a look at this. Right, have a look at this. First, you will have to calculate what is the economic cost of food grains. First, you will have to calculate what is the economic cost of the food grains. What do you mean by economic cost? Follow the process carefully. Food Corporation of India will purchase food grains, but all the food grains it will not distribute immediately. I'll repeat it. FCI, Food Corporation of India, will purchase the food grains, but they will not distribute all the food grains immediately. Why? Whatever procurement they have done, they will use it for two purposes. One is called as buffer stock. Second one for distribution purposes. One is for buffer stock, second one is for distribution. Sir, what do you mean by this? I'll take a simple number. Imagine there are 10 beneficiaries. All of them are provided 5 kgs of food grain. The Food Corporation of India will require how many kgs of food grain? 50 kgs. But FCI doesn't purchase only 50 kgs. It will go above 50 kgs and let's say purchase 75 kgs. Now some of you will ask me, sir, why? If they require 50 kgs, why are they purchasing 75? Is it not waste of money? No. What FCI says is 50 kgs will be for distribution purposes. Is it okay? Out of 75, 50 will be for distribution. Remaining 25 is called as buffer stock. Remaining 25 is referred to as buffer stock. What do you mean by buffer stock? Extra food grain that is purchased and stored. Simple. What do you mean by buffer here? Extra food grain required is 50, but FCI will not purchase only 50. They'll purchase more than 50. That more than 50 is extra. So extra quantity of food grain that is purchased and stored, it is called as a buffer stock. Any difficulty here? Right? That is called as a buffer stock. Now why, sir? Why are they purchasing buffer stock? The argument of the government is, what if suddenly in the market there is an imbalance of supply and demand? Right? Because again, go back to the basic idea I told you. Wheat cultivation, you can't do it on weekly basis. You can't do it on monthly basis as well. So today, right, let's say in the month of January, if there is a mismatch between supply and demand, till March you will not get food grains of wheat. So what will you do at that point of time? So government will keep a certain extra food grains. If there is a mismatch in the market, they will sell it in the market. And please remember the name of the scheme also. The name of the scheme where government generally sells these extra food grains in the market, that is called as Open Market Sale Scheme. Is it okay? OMSS. The name of the scheme where government auctions or sells these food grains in the market, this is called as Open Market Sales Scheme. Right? Have you read the newspapers? This was there in the newspapers. Open Market Sale Scheme. In the last week itself, this was there in the newspaper. The total quantity of wheat that the government of India will be selling in the market. And why is the government selling in the market? Simple. Government has purchased wheat, kept it as extra buffer. Now they have realized market prices of wheat are increasing. Now they want to sell it in the market. I hope you understand. They want to supply to the market so that the market prices will cool down. So under the Open Market Sale Scheme, generally the food grains which are procured by the government, stored by the government, will be sold, will be auctioned in the market so that the supply will be stabilized, prices will be stabilized. Any problem with understanding the concept of buffer stock? Let me know. Why do we need buffer stock? Right? Understand the current affairs, you automatically have understood what is the need for a buffer stock. So come back to this here. Food Corporation of India will purchase food grains, but they will not purchase all of the food grain. I'm sorry, they will not sell all the food grain or distribute all the food grain now. Some of it will be stored, right? Remaining will be distributed. And that is the precise reason. Have a look at this. Economic cost consists of two concepts. One is called as an acquisition cost and second one is distribution cost. Right? One is acquisition cost, the second one is distribution cost. Let me explain this. Follow this carefully. Follow this concept carefully. It's technical. That's the reason I'm only concerned about you. Otherwise, I know what is acquisition, what is buffer, what is distribution. Let's say here is a farmer. The Food Corporation of India, right? In the market, there is a sale that happens between the farmer and FCI. Let's say wheat. Right? In the market, farmer will sell the crop to Food Corporation of India. First, FCI will pay MSP to the farmer. Agreed? First expenditure, FCI will pay MSP to the farmer. Second, it is happening in a market. Market, there is a technical term for this, mandi. We will come to the mandi concept in some time after the lunch break. Don't worry. This transaction is happening in a mandi, market. And this mandi, which is run by the state government, will also impose certain charges on it. Right? Mandi charges will be imposed. Who will pay this? Again, FCI will pay mandi charges. That's a second expense. Third one. Now FCI has to put all these food grains in the bag, load the food grains onto the truck. Don't you think they will use labor here? Is it okay? Don't you think they will use labor? Now, labor has been used. All the, let's say, wheat have been put into bags, gunny bags or jute bags. Now the bags have been loaded onto the truck. Now the truck will go to the FCI godown, warehouse. Now there is a transportation cost. There is transportation cost. Now this is step number one or phase one. Food grains have reached warehouse now. Here is a warehouse. Food grains have reached warehouse. Is it over? Of course no. Now you need somebody to remove the jute bags or let's say food grain bags and put them into the warehouse. So again you will require labor charges here. You require labor charges. Now you have put it in the warehouse. Can you just keep them in the warehouse without maintaining temperature, without maintaining the moisture, without controlling the pest attack, or without appointing a person to look after the warehouse? So again there are lot of maintenance charges. Lot of maintenance charges. Now look at the next point carefully. Imagine this is a 75 kgs of food grain, wheat that has reached the warehouse. Do we take all the 75 kgs to the distribution now? Do we need all the 75? Please go back to the previous slide, you will remember the number. We don't require all the 75. 25 kgs will continue to keep in the warehouse. Remaining 50 kgs, now we will have to load them into trucks. Now the truck will be transporting the food grains. Trucks will be transporting the food grains to, let's say, a village. They will reach a fair price shop. Now from the fair price shop, these will be distributed. These will be distributed to the beneficiaries. This is the basic process. Any difficulty, please do let me know. I've divided into 3 phases. Why, you will understand in a minute. Now, is it okay, right? Have a look at this. Is it okay if I divide the 75 kgs into 2 parts and I say 25 kgs, they will incur the expenditure under phase 1 and phase 2. The Food Corporation of India will incur the expenditure on 25 kgs in phase 1 and phase 2. And Food Corporation of India will incur expenditure on 50 kgs of food grain in phase 1, phase 2 and phase 3. Let me know if you're finding this difficult. Once you understand this, done and dusted, right? You'll basically get why I'm dividing all of this. I'll repeat it again. I'm dividing the 75 kgs into two parts. This 50 kgs is for distribution purposes and this 25 kgs is a buffer stock. And I'm saying, right, that on that 25 kgs, Food Corporation of India will incur expenditure under phase 1 and phase 2. Whereas for 50 kgs, the Food Corporation of India has incurred expenditure under phase 1, phase 2 as well as phase 3. Any difficulty, please do let me know right now. Why? Whenever you incur expenditure under phase 1 and phase 2, these are called as procurement incidentals. These are referred to as procurement incidentals. And when you incur expenditure here, this is referred to as a distribution cost. This is referred to as distribution cost. And now tell me, what is the total expenditure incurred by FCI? Total expenditure incurred by the FCI will be procurement incidentals on 25 kgs, procurement incidentals as well as a distribution cost on 50 kgs. Is the logic okay? Come back to this slide. The total expenditure that is incurred by Food Corporation of India will be, right, the procurement incidentals incurred on 25, procurement plus distribution on 50. Is the logic okay? Answer this. I know most of you are hungry, most of you are angry, most of you want to run away. But this is required for UPSC Civil Service Examination. Be very careful. Question has been asked on this. And you might read book. You read a book. Then let me know whether did you understand it without reading this or without understanding this. If you had directly read the book, would you have understood it? Generally, they don't divide that into procurement, distribution, etc. That's a reason. Okay, come back to this. So the total expenditure incurred by Food Corporation of India is called as economic cost of food grains. Economic cost of food grains. Now, how food subsidy is calculated from economic cost? How food subsidy is calculated? Let's say hypothetically, have a look at this. Let's say hypothetically, Government of India has incurred, I'll take simple numbers, 25 rupees in the form of procurement incidentals and 15 rupees in the form of distribution cost. 25 and 15. Now, what is the total expenditure incurred here? Total expenditure will be 25 plus 15, 40 rupees. Point 1. 40 rupees will be the total expenditure incurred by the government. But have a look at this. Until now, I told you, until now, when the distribution of the food grains will happen, government will be collecting certain amount from the beneficiary. I will repeat it. Until now, right, when the distribution of the food grains will happen, government was collecting certain amount from the beneficiary. Let's say hypothetically, when this food grain is distributed, the government will be collecting 3 rupees from you. So on one side, government is spending 40 rupees and on the other hand, government is collecting 3 rupees. So what is the subsidy that is incurred by the government? What is the amount of subsidy that is incurred by the government in this example? The amount of subsidy that is incurred by the government will be 37 rupees. Any difficulty in understanding how food subsidy is calculated? Right now, until now, this used to happen. Now, government says, I will not collect anything. Simple. I will not collect anything. I'll simply collect 0 rupees from you. Means, I will incur procurement incidentals. I will incur the distribution cost. I will give it free of a cost to you. So, what is the food subsidy here? Food subsidy is total expenditure I'm going to incur. Simple. Whatever is the total expenditure I'm going to incur, that will be my food subsidy. Right? That will be there for at least the next 1 year or this year. At least this year, this is how the system is going to happen. Next year, you also don't know whether the government is going to discontinue or continue it, or I also don't know about it. Right? So this is how the food subsidy is calculated, right? When there is an issue price, when there is no issue price. Shall I go to the next point here? Can I go to the next point here? Any problem with this? Please do let me know. Now, some of you are asking, sir, why did Government of India make it free of a cost? Very simple. Right? Very simple. Government said, we have a NFSA, National Food Security Act, under which 5 kgs per head we are giving, and Antyodaya 35 kgs we are giving. But in addition to this, during pandemic, government introduced one more scheme by the name of Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. PMGKAY, Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. And have a look at this. Under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, government, in addition to the NFSA anyways you will get. In addition to the entitlement under NFSA, government gave you 5 kgs free food grains. I hope you understand this. Right? NFSA anyways you will get it. In addition to the NFSA, 5 more kgs free food grains were given to you. Now tell me, until 2020 only NFSA was there. In addition to NFSA, 5 more kgs of food grains under Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. What will happen to food subsidy bill? Look at the picture. What will happen to the food subsidy bill? The food subsidy bill will balloon. Food subsidy bill increased for the government. And this is not manageable. Trust me, this is not manageable. You cannot manage huge amount of food subsidy bill because it is revenue expenditure. Right? Now the concern was, can we keep on continuing this? Can we keep on continuing this? We can't do that. This is not sustainable. So the beauty of the system that was implemented by the government was, they said, we will take Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana and will subsume it under NFSA. Simple. Right? We will take Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana and will simply subsume it under NFSA. Which means, under NFSA, 5 kg of food grain I used to give you, but I used to charge you money. I will not charge you. I will give it free of a cost. Understand the importance of this. Right? I used to give you 5 kgs. I used to collect 3, 2 or 1 rupee. I will not collect it for next 1 year. Right? I'll give it free of a cost. Some of you will be thinking, what is the advantage here, sir? What is the benefit that the government of India is looking for? The biggest benefit is, henceforth, there is no extra subsidy for PMGKAY. I hope you understand. There is no extra subsidy burden for the government for PMGKAY. That is the biggest benefit. Right? Because PMGKAY, government used to provide free of cost. So there they will not be losing that amount. Losing in the sense they will not be spending that money. Now you will say, but sir, here also they were giving, now they are giving free of a cost. Understand the difference. I am spending, let's say 40 rupees. Just understand the beauty of this system. I am spending 40. I will give it to you. I will collect 3 rupees from you. Okay. I am spending 40, right? And I will collect 3 rupees for you for every kg. Which means I am going to spend 37 rupees. Now, rather than collecting 3 rupees, I will give it free of a cost. And again, please understand, NFSA 5, PMGKAY 5. Now, that will not be there, only 5. Now, rather than incurring a subsidy of 37, I will incur a subsidy of 40 rupees only. I hope you understand. Rather than incurring a subsidy of 37, now it will become 40. So do you think the burden on the government of India will suddenly expand? Absolutely no. The burden on government of India will not expand because of this. Why? Earlier they used to give you 10 kgs. On 5 kgs they used to collect 3 rupees. 3 rupee per kg. Now they will give you only 5 kgs, that too free of a cost. Right? Don't you think the burden on government of India will be addressed? The fiscal burden will be the biggest advantage for the government. And generally there is this argument, right? Concept of freebies, idea of freebies. Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Yojana is a concept of freebie itself. Again, don't ask me definition. There is no definition of a freebie. What is a freebie for you may or may not be a freebie for me. There is no definition for it. So the argument is, Government of India has been talking about freebies. And the biggest problem of freebies is, you can give them to people. Very difficult to take it away. I hope you understand. You can give the freebies to the people. Very difficult to take them away. But now Government of India says, I will give you 5 kgs of food grain every month. But I will discontinue or subsume the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana under NFSA. Right? So that's how the Government of India has marketed this. Okay. So any issue with this? Any issue with whatever I've discussed? Please do let me know. Here 37 rupees is a subsidy. Yes. Right. Until now it was 37. But again, for this year, there is no issue price. There is no issue price. So whatever expenses are incurred by the government, no money is collected. Right. So that will be the subsidy burden. So 35 kgs are given under AAY and 5 kgs under PHH. They are given free of a cost. Right, under the current system, yes, for 1 year. But after that, as usual, earlier 3 rupee, 2 rupee, 1 rupee, right, was imposed. That will be the issue price. Okay. Lunch break, 1 o'clock. I'll give the lunch break at 1 o'clock. Right, all of you are worried about your lunch. Who will be worried about my lunch? Okay. Again, it was a joke. Right, don't say, sir, how can you ask about your lunch to me? Universal PDS. Universal PDS simply means where the benefits will be given to everyone in the system. Simple. The subsidy, whatever was provided earlier, was given to everybody. Universal PDS. We don't have universal PDS now. We have targeted PDS. Can I go to the next point here? Anybody has any kind of an issue related to whatever I've discussed so far? And please check the papers. You will realize all of these have been asked by UPS and they will continue to ask it. They will continue to ask it. Okay, now one reform under this NFSA, the recent reform, concept of one nation, one ration card. We'll discuss this, then we will take it right forward after the lunch break. In COVID, is it universal PDS? No. Even during COVID, only the beneficiaries under the PDS, that is NFSA, were given or were covered under the Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana. Even during COVID. The whole idea was simple. COVID had a huge impact on these beneficiaries compared to others. The impact that was felt was much, much higher. That is the reason government to blunt the impact, reduce the impact, announce that I will give you 5 kgs of food grains free of a cost under PMGK-AY. Okay, next one, ONORC. Before you start typing, sir, the long form, expand ONORC, it is there here, right side of the slide. One nation, one ration card, ONORC. Now, what is this one nation, one ration card? Simple. Imagine here is a beneficiary, right? And remember the basic points. Who will identify the beneficiaries under NFSA? Answer this. Who will identify the beneficiary under NFSA? Identification. Start answering. State government. Thanks a lot. Right? State government will identify the beneficiaries. Right? Let's start with a simple example here. Imagine here is a person A. A lives with 4 more people, or let's say 3 more people in the family. These are identified as beneficiaries in state 1. Now, A is a migrant labor. A is a migrant labor. A will move from state 1 to state 2. They will move from, or A will move from state 1 to state 2. Sir, why is the person moving? Ask him to stay. Migrant labor. By default, migrant means they are going to move like this. Right? So A will move from state 1 to state 2. Now here comes the problem. A will be identified as a beneficiary where? State 1. But right now, is A staying in the state 1 or state 2? A has already migrated to state 2. Now, do you think A will be identified as a beneficiary in state 2? No, of course no, because he is already a beneficiary in another state. So in this case, there is a problem. What is the problem? You can get the benefit, no doubt. You will get the 5 kgs of food grain, but you will get it in state 1 because it is the state 1 which has identified you as a beneficiary. But you have moved from one district to another district, moved from one state to another state. In such cases, identification of the beneficiaries will become very, very difficult. Why will the second state give you benefit? Because you are not a beneficiary here. Right? I hope you understand the problem. Right? A is a beneficiary in the first state. You have moved to second state. Why will the second state give you the benefit? Right? They will not give you food grains. So there is a problem with portability. I hope you understand the term here now. Portability. All of you heard of portability? SIM card portability. You will have your own number, same number, only the service provider will change. Apply the same logic here. Right? I'm pretty sure at least some of you have gone for SIM card portability. Sir, Jio came. I felt Jio provides cheaper services. I was Airtel customer. I jumped to Jio. I did not change my number. I ported my number. Portability. So in concept of portability, what are we trying to impose here, or what are we trying to achieve here? Person A will continue to receive benefit, but the state which will provide the benefit will change now. That is a concept of ration card portability. Is it okay? That is the basic idea of ration card portability. So one nation, one ration card. What is the idea all about? It will provide you portability of ration cards. You can move from one state to another state, continue to get your entitlement of food grains under NFSA. That is one nation, one ration card. How is that possible? Right? How will that work out? Simple. Yesterday I told you this, Aadhaar. I have told you this. Government uses Aadhaar here. A, who is the beneficiary under NFSA, he is registered under Aadhaar. And there is a linkage between both of the servers here, Aadhaar server as well as NFSA server. Now imagine I am that person A. I will go to state 2. I will provide my thumbprint. Just a second. I will go to the state 2 and here I will go to a ration shop or a fair price shop where they have the facility to get my thumbprint. So I will go to the ration shop, I will provide my thumbprint, and now the system says I am person A. I am supposed to get 5 kgs. I am a beneficiary of a state government 1. Now this ration shop or a fair price shop will issue 5 kgs of food grain to me. So even though I've migrated from one state to another state, because of this system, I will be able to continue to get my entitlement of food grains. This is how the concept of one nation, one ration card has been implemented in India. And all the states in India now have adopted ONORC. Is it okay? All the states in India have adopted ONORC, one nation, one ration card. Any difficulty in understanding the system, please do let me know. Although I've written the prices here, again, please be very careful. I'll put a hashtag here. For the current year, this is not the issue price. For the current year, issue price is 0 rupees. Right? The current year, the issue price is 0 rupees. So this is how one nation, one ration card has been implemented. Now there are two systems. Remember the name of the system. One is IMPDS, Integrated Management of Public Distribution System. Integrated Management of Public Distribution System. And the second one is Anna Vitran Portal or Anna Vitran System. Now why these two have been implemented by the government? Simple. Whenever, have a look at this. Whenever beneficiaries will move from one state to another state, all these transactions, transaction means I am moving from state 1 to state 2, I will get 5 kgs in second state. That transaction will have to be recorded in this portal, that is Integrated Management of Public Distribution System. and the transactions are happening, that is, I'm a beneficiary of state 1, I'm getting food grains in the state 1 itself, that is in the same district or in another district, etc. All these transactions will be recorded in Anna Vitran portal. Sir, why two different systems like this? Simply to plan better. I hope you understand. Simply so that we can plan it better. We can find out how many people are getting the entitlement in another state, so that we can allocate the food grains. Sufficient food grains are available at all the points of time in these states, etc., etc., etc. That is how these two systems or these two portals have been implemented, and ONORC has been adopted by all the states in India. It is implemented now. Now, one more point, please remember this. I've discussed all the aspects now. Under which department ONORC or let's say NFSA, etc. will come? Many of you will be tempted to say Ministry of Agriculture, but it will be wrong. Please be very careful, right? Because it is food grains, distribution, agriculture, etc. You'll be tempted to say Ministry of Agriculture. Some of you will say, sir, expenditure is there. Ministry of Finance. Absolutely no. Right? It comes under Ministry of Consumer Affairs. Please remember this. It falls under Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Public Distribution under the Government of India. And within the Ministry of Consumer Affairs, there is a Department of Food and Public Distribution. Remember that as well. UPSC can test you on this in the preliminary examination. Done? So this is a discussion regarding food subsidy, right? The PDS, the concept of NFSA, the recent reform of One Nation, One Ration card. But having said so, again I'm saying, is there a problem with this system? Of course, yes. There are issues here. One, what is the issue? Under One Nation, One Ration card, you say you will go to a ration shop and you'll provide thumbprint. Now you are expecting that that ration shop will always have stable internet connection. I hope you understand my point. You're expecting that that ration shop always has a stable internet connectivity. That is one problem. Second, management of food grains. Which state, how much food grains has to be provided now because of portability, that's also slightly very tricky. Government has to be very proactive in this case. That's the second problem. Third problem, already I've mentioned that the concept of NFSA is based on the population of 2011. Already the population has changed, right? And there are problems with this, right? They will simply say inclusion and exclusion errors. I'll give you an example. Have a look at this. Inclusion and exclusion error, right? What do you mean by inclusion error? Let me give a very simple example. Imagine here is a household. There are 5 people. All the 5 are covered under NFSA. 5 kgs every month. One of the person dies. Again, don't say, sir, how bad you are, etc. Apply economics here. One of the person dies. Any guarantee that this house will tell the ration shop, reduce the entitlement? I hope you understand. Any guarantee that they will say, okay, give us only 4 entitlement for 4 people, not for 5 people? What might happen is, even though people have moved into, let's say, non-poverty, that is the person is not poor. He's still, he has already become rich. He is a middle class household now. Because government is giving food grains at a lower cost or free of cost, they will continue to keep on purchasing under the PDS, taking under PDS. Inclusion error. I hope you understand my statement now. Inclusion error. People who have moved out of poverty, they will continue to get the food grain. People who have died, their houses will continue to get the entitlement. Right? So inclusion error is there. Now some of you will say, but don't you think, sir, that ration shop person will know that the person has died? He might know or she might know. And now what is the guarantee that they will inform the government to reduce the entitlement from 5 people to 4 people? Rather than that, don't you think they will only end up selling extra 5 kgs of food grain in the black market now? Possibility is there or not? Right? So there are inclusion errors. There's a problem of inclusion error. What about exclusion error? You have taken the 2011 population as a base. And in 2011, our population was 121 crore people. 1.21 billion or 121 crore. Today our population is more than 1.3 billion. So don't you think more population has got added, which is poor, but it was not still included under the NFSA? Because now you have taken the population of 2011 as a base itself. Exclusion error. So there will be inclusion error, exclusion error, right? Maintaining food stocks at every point of time, having a stable internet connectivity, or the biggest problem here, you want the people who are not tech savvy to start using all of it, right? Imagine I'll come to, right, or you will go to a shop and the shopkeeper says, I will give you these food grains, provide me your thumbprint. Give me your thumbprint. I don't think people will be slightly suspicious, right? So there are a lot of issues regarding this adoption, right? Or let's say, adaptation of such technology, or right, changing the habit of the people to adopt such technology. Okay, so these are some of the concerns regarding the food subsidy as well as the concept of one nation, one ration card. Any difficulty, please do let me know. Otherwise, we'll have a lunch break now. What about those not covered under Antyodaya Anna Yojana and under PHH and are poor? Exclusion error, they will not get the benefit. How much food grains they will get? They will not get. Please understand, if you're not included, please understand this carefully, right? Are the only poor people included in the NFSA? No, I'm not saying that. When you say 66% of India's population is covered, don't you think some of the households which are above poverty will also be covered? Answer is yes, by the way. But if you're poor, you are still not covered under this, there is no way you will get the entitlement. Under ONRC, all people will get same amount of ration irrespective of native state, or any difference is there in the native and non-native state people. Under NFSA, you are supposed to get 5 kgs. In that state, whatever 5 kgs they are distributing, they will allocate that to you. Under ONORC, person moves, again started permutation combination. Person will move from that state to this state to that state. Person moves from Maharashtra to Punjab. Will the state accept ONRC without any temporary and permanent correction, like move to one state or another, right? They will accept it. Why? You're providing the thumbprint. You're providing the thumbprint, and your thumbprint will basically, right, show the status that you are an Aadhaar card holder, you have Aadhaar. But more importantly, Government of India using the Aadhaar database has identified you as a beneficiary under NFSA. Done? Any other doubts? Any other doubts that you people have? Please do let me know if you have any doubts. Otherwise, we'll simply take the lunch break now. No doubts? Everything is clear? Huh? Okay, done then. So 1, 2. We'll start the session at 2:05. We'll start the session, next session. After the lunch break, we'll start the session at 2:05. Agreed? Right, done. Right, take a lunch break then. Take a lunch break. We'll meet again at 2:05.